Drop the clutch, pedal to the floor, turn that giddy button to a lion's roar. Dream machine, racing queen, I'll take you wherever you wanna go. Let's go to town, break the speed of sound. Tonight we all know. Dream machine, racing queen, you make my heart beat, you make my heart beat. Dream machine, racing queen, you make my heart beat, you make my heart beat. Red on the highway, blue lights flashing behind me. Dream machine, racing queen, you make my heart beat, you make my heart beat.
I woke up this morning with a blue moon in my eye. Now, that's the wrong show. But really, I woke up this morning like a lot of you did. I actually was on my way to the gym, and I got a text from a friend with a tweet talking about Vince McMahon has stepped down. And I said, can I get a moment's peace after the week that we've had, after the month that we've had? Every single day brings more news. Every day something different happens. It's an injury, it's some kind of a scandal, it's some kind of a big return or something. Something's always going on. And sure enough, I go and I check, and it's legitimate. The news that I never thought I would live to see. John Moxley once said that Vince McMahon is going to die in the chair at the gorilla position. That's where he will expire one day. He will never leave. He will never not be at the helm of WWE. And so I look and I see that Vince McMahon was out as the chairman and CEO of WWE. And that his daughter, Stephanie McMahon, the same Stephanie McMahon who just stepped away to take a leave of absence to spend more time with her family, would be taking over as the interim chairwoman and CEO of the company. This, of course, has to do with the investigation that the WWE board is currently undergoing, all the allegations and the talk of hush money and these NDA agreements, and apparently, I don't have all the details yet, but apparently there are quite a few of these NDAs, and it might get even messier than it already is. We don't know all the details. We don't know the extent of it. Nobody really knows where this is going to end up. I have a sense of how this is going to end, but a lot of it honestly depends on what they find. And we're still too early into this to know exactly what they're going to find. But they're looking into Vince. They're looking into, Johnny Ace. It's all being investigated right now. And officially on paper, as far as Wall Street is concerned, Stephanie McMahon is the CEO and the leader of this company. Then I saw that Vince McMahon, in the same announcement, in the same corporate press release that they put out, I saw in there that Vince McMahon is going to remain at the helm of creative in WWE. And all of a sudden, I can picture all these people sitting there reading this news, and they're popping the champagne cork, and you got confetti falling from the ceiling, got the fucking disco ball coming down. And they didn't read a little further down in the press release where it mentioned that. And then all of a sudden, the music just stops. You get like the record scratch. Everyone's shoulders just sort of sag down. Sometimes people don't read. I think a lot of people missed that part of the announcement today. And all of a sudden they weren't so excited anymore because they realized that Vince McMahon was still going to be running the show creatively. And if you are creatively dissatisfied with what you get on WWE television, well, then this announcement means nothing to you. This announcement does nothing to change anything. In fact, not only is Vince McMahon staying on in a creative capacity to oversee the creative in WWE, then came the announcement that Vince would be appearing on SmackDown tonight. So on the same day that they make the announcement that Vince McMahon is not even stepping down, but stepping back temporarily as the CEO of this company. We come to find out that he is going to be making an appearance on SmackDown tonight at 8 p.m. And I thought Jake Tapper's reaction to this on CNN when they had Dave Meltzer on was on point. When he mentioned that at the end of the segment that they did covering this, and Tapper's only reaction to this was, of course you will. Of course you will. It is a classic Vince McMahon move. And it was at that point when I heard that announcement was being made, and I didn't even know what he was going to do. I didn't know what he was going to say. I didn't know if he was going to get blown up in a limousine again. This guy has done some really stupid shit on television over the years. One of the dumbest, of course, he got into that little spat with Stan Kroenke, the owner of the Denver Nuggets. Remember that whole thing where they got kicked out of the Pepsi Arena, whatever it was, in Denver? And so we had to be subjected to this segment on Raw that Monday where Vince was standing in the ring with an Stan Kroenke impersonator so that he can take out all of his frustrations on the impersonator and he can say, oh, the E in your name, it stands for Enos. You're an Enos. Very mature. So I didn't know what he was going to do, but I figured no good can come from this. But I realized something at that point when I saw that he was going to be on SmackDown tonight. It actually made a lot of sense to me because it proved one thing. Vince McMahon had only one goal. He had only one goal with that appearance tonight. And the goal had nothing to do with what he was going to say. The words that came out of his mouth, it didn't even really matter what he was going to say when he was out there. He really couldn't say much anyway. I'm sure Jerry McDevitt was telling him, you really shouldn't say anything. Keep your fucking mouth shut. Just listen to me like what you've been doing for the last 35 years and you'll be all right. So it wasn't even about what he was going to say. Just the fact that he went out there, and of course everybody gave him a standing ovation. It was like the king coming back to the castle. And everybody is clapping and everybody is bowing and they're giving him the royal treatment. His appearing on SmackDown tonight served one purpose, and that was to make it very clear that regardless of what announcements and what press releases are put out, regardless of what it may say on paper, there's only one true leader in this company. There's only one person truly running the show, and his name is Vince McMahon. That's the only reason, I believe, that he wanted to be and went out there tonight in the middle of the ring on the show. He wanted to make it very clear on a day when everybody was celebrating his demise and tap dancing on his grave that, in fact, he's not dead yet. And he went out there and he got a hero's welcome. He didn't say much. In fact, he didn't say a fucking thing. But he didn't have to. Just his being there spoke volumes. He is not taking this seriously. He does not believe. And I think with good reason, because he's been Teflon from things like this in the past. He's not going anywhere. And he, without actually saying it, he wanted to make that very clear tonight. I'm not going anywhere. And there's only one person running this company. Because think about it, right? He walks out there tonight. I mean, they called him Mr. McMahon like he's a character. He walked out there tonight. He was in the back running the show. What was really different? What was really different? You know, we hear about champions. Sometimes you get insulted when you're the champion. Oh, you're a paper champion, right? You're a paper champion. Stephanie McMahon is a paper CEO. And that was the only purpose of Vince McMahon appearing on the show tonight. So if you were wondering, oh my God, I wonder what he's going to say and I wonder what he's going to do, wasn't about that. This was a fuck you to everybody who thinks that Vince McMahon is dead. And it's too bad because all of this bullshit was being talked about all day. And I think a lot of people forgot about the fact that tonight we had a WWE Universal Championship match built up all week as the main event on this show. Roman Reigns, he came out of hibernation to defend his titles against Matt Riddle. And I knew that no matter what happens with Vince and no matter what happens, all the other bullshit on this show, if they gave these guys time, Roman and Riddle would go out there and would have a very good match. And that's what they did. They had a very good match. The Crowd was into it. The crowd badly wanted to see Riddle walk out with that championship. The people love him. He did not win the championship. I know that's going to come as a surprise to a lot of you, but he did not walk out with the championship. Roman Reigns is still the champion. And then there were still 5 minutes left in the show. And I said, obviously, this is setting up for something. Unless, again, it's Vince blowing himself up outside in the limo again. Somebody is coming out here at the end of this show. And I can honestly tell you, and I don't know why, it's my own fault. It should have been the first name I thought of. I did not have Brock Lesnar on my brain. Now, I knew that Brock was supposed to come back around this time for SummerSlam. Originally, he was going to be back in Money in the Bank. Then he got pulled. Roman got pulled. Once it moved out of the stadium, it's like, well, we're just going to be in a small building now, so who gives a shit? We got the 2 Money in the Bank matches, and that's really all we need to give these people. So I knew that he was due back soon, but I just did not have him on the brain. I was naively thinking that maybe they would come up with some other plan. Randy Orton is very clearly not going to be able to go at SummerSlam. So then who would challenge Roman for the championship? Roman Reigns stood in the ring after his match tonight. He got on the microphone and he said, there's nobody left. Who's left? There's nobody left. And you know what the really sad thing is? Even though that's part of his character, he smashes him and he runs through the entire roster, and that's what you would expect him to go out there and say. There's a lot of truth in what he says there. He has run through every single person on this roster, including Brock Lesnar, Jey Uso, right? You go back to the Fiend and Braun Strowman, Jey Uso, Kevin Owens, Edge, Daniel Bryan, John Cena, Big E. The list goes on. He wrestled Seth Rollins, didn't beat him, but they did have that match at the Royal Rumble. WrestleMania this year again, Brock Lesnar. We've barely seen him since. Tonight was the first time he defended his championship. He comes out there and says, there's nobody left. Which is kind of a big fucking problem right now in this company. And after saying that, who walks out? Brock Lesnar. This is the state right now of the main event picture in WWE. That they have to go back to Brock Lesnar. I enjoyed Cowboy Brock when we saw him a few months ago. I enjoyed the hell out of it. It looked like Brock was having the most fun he's ever had in his entire career. And that was nice for a while, and then he got beat, and then he went away. And here we are all these months later. And again, Brock Lesnar against Roman Reigns, which is now official for SummerSlam. They're going to be in a last man standing match on July 30th. Brock Lesnar against Roman Reigns. That's their plan B. Because they have tickets to sell to a big stadium where apparently tickets are not selling all that great. So they go back to their tried and true. They go back to Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. Now, we have Money in the Bank coming up, and I have to assume that Seth Rollins is going to factor into that. He seems to be the favorite. He would have to seem right now to be the likeliest candidate to win the briefcase. And here we are now, setting up for a scenario that played itself out 7 years ago. And I want you to think about that. That was in 2015, in the main event of WrestleMania 31. We had Brock Lesnar for the very first time against Roman Reigns. Roman was the babyface, Brock was the heel. It was a very different dynamic, although you could argue that Brock was the babyface in the building that night. They had an excellent match. Seth Rollins comes out, cashes in his Money in the Bank, right? The biggest Money in the Bank cash-in of all time. The heist of the century. What a moment. One of the great WrestleMania moments. That was in 2015. We are now in 2022. Where are we? We're right back to Brock Lesnar against Roman Reigns with the possibility that Seth Rollins could win Money in the Bank and once again cash in on a Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns match. And you're going to tell me that this company doesn't have any problems on the creative end? You're going to tell me that this company doesn't have any issues making new stars? It's certainly not for lack of talent in that company. They had people, they had options they could have plugged in there at SummerSlam. I could think of one on Raw right now. In fact, 2 of them on Raw. One named AJ Styles, who's been losing pretty much every other week. But you got AJ Styles, you got Bobby Lashley. You have other options. And look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, oh my God, these are fresh new names, but at least it would be something different. It would be a match here during Roman's reign that we haven't seen before. Instead, we're right back where we've always been. So you can understand why people might be excited about the possibility that Vince McMahon could be ousted from power and could be ousted from the creative team. I don't know if there's a better option in the company right now. I don't know if it would be better for them to dip outside the company and find somebody to bring in. I don't think there's that magic bullet that we can sit here and say that if Vince went away, if Vince goes down to this and they need somebody new to run creative, who's it going to be? You know who it'll probably be? It'll probably be Bruce Pritchard. And it'll just be more of the same. Who's to say who would end up in that spot? But I know one thing. I feel like I'm watching Groundhog Day when I watch a lot of these shows. And I liked the whole Roman versus Brock thing a few months ago, but here we are now. It's almost July. And we're right back where we were. This is your SmackDown review for June 17th. I am the Solomonster. We're just doing SmackDown tonight, which you could probably tell. We are not doing Rampage. Rampage is on as we speak. I will be watching that tomorrow. I'll talk about Rampage among all the other stuff there is to talk about on the podcast coming up this Sunday. That'll be episode 761. Right now, I need you to do one thing for me, and that is, of course, hit the like button. Hit that like button for me. That helps the video out a great deal. Super chats are open. You will see them popping up on your screen. I know, as you did the other night. You guys came out in full force on Wednesday during the Dynamite review. A lot of great feedback, a lot of great comments, a lot of great questions. So if you have any tonight, you want to support the channel, you can drop a super chat and I will read them a little bit later on. Now here's what we're going to do. I do want to tackle the Vince stuff first. I'm not going to get into every little detail. I do want to save a lot of this shit for Sunday. I'm going to do a whole thing on this because this will probably go down as the single biggest story of the year in wrestling. And it's still breaking. We still don't know exactly where this leads. We don't know where this ends. But there will not be a bigger story all year in wrestling than what is going on right now with the board and with Vince McMahon. But I want to talk about that here at the top because, again, there are some people who may not be up to speed on what's going on. Early this morning, WWE announced that a special committee of its board is conducting an investigation into alleged misconduct by its chairman, Vince McMahon, and John Laurinaitis, the head of talent relations, and we knew that already, but the news today was that, effective immediately, Vince McMahon has voluntarily stepped back from his responsibilities as CEO and chairman of the board until the conclusion of the investigation. McMahon will retain his role and responsibilities related to WWE's creative content during this period and remains committed to cooperating with the review that is underway. The committee has appointed Stephanie McMahon to serve as interim CEO and interim chairwoman, and they included the following quote from Vince. This was the one quote from Vince McMahon in this announcement. I have pledged my complete cooperation to the investigation by the committee, and I will do everything possible to support the investigation. I have also pledged to accept the findings and outcome of the investigation, whatever they are. That's key. He will accept the findings of the investigation, but of course he never said that he would accept the recommendations that the board might make. That's an important point. And I just love it. I love that they bury Stephanie McMahon. It was very clear that she was being bad-mouthed. They were kicking some dirt on her as she went out the door. After she made the announcement that she was going to be taking that leave of absence, it was kind of quiet. But then as the weeks wore on, these reports started to bubble up. And then the Business Insider article came. Business Insider is a legitimate outlet. It's not some fly-by-night random website. Somebody in the company leaked that stuff to Business Insider. It was very clear that they had an agenda, and that agenda was to make Stephanie McMahon look bad and look incompetent and ineffective at her job on her way out. So we go from Stephanie McMahon taking a leave of absence to spend more time with her family, to focus on her family, and getting kicked in the ass on the way out. She just wasn't good at her job. She couldn't get the job done. And a few weeks later now, she's, on paper anyway, running the fucking company. I mean, this is the wildest timeline that we live in right now. It is absolutely ridiculous. And by the way, you know, for all the stuff I just talked about, there she is on the screen. Sasha Banks, she pops up periodically when we get a new sub. She's in the news too. She's in the news too. A lot of chatter that Sasha Banks is in fact gone from WWE. I still have not seen that confirmed for sure, 100% anywhere. I know Sean Ross Sapp said he was looking to confirm the report that came from Raj Giri of Wrestling Inc. the other night. So I can't sit here at this moment and tell you for sure that she's gone, but basically she's probably gone. She is probably gone from WWE. But we'll talk more about Sasha later on Sunday. But again, Stephanie, the CEO now and chairwoman, first female CEO. Actually, that's not true. Linda McMahon was the CEO. What am I even saying? She's not even the first female McMahon to be CEO in this company. But she is officially now the CEO. It's also very clear the way they handle things tonight. If you watched SmackDown, Vince came out right at the top of the show. It was very clear that it was a ratings ploy. They wanted to pop a big number tonight. That was also part of the reason why Vince probably wanted to walk out there on the show. It's all about ratings. Now, I see people letting their imagination get the better of them and talking about how this is going to spell the end of Vince McMahon. It's going to usher some kind of new era into WWE. And I would say that, look, you can never rule anything out 100% because they are investigating and there could be more than one body, so to speak, right? There are, I'm sure, many bodies buried in various forms over the years in this company, secrets. We're finding out about the NDAs, for example. You know, we don't even know what these are NDAs for. It could get worse. This could be the tip of the iceberg, or this could be as bad as it gets. We don't know. If things get worse, if the news gets worse and they uncover even more stuff, yes, it's possible that the dominoes could fall, and one of those dominoes could be Vince McMahon. But right now, we know of the one payment with this woman in this relationship, and that's pretty much all we know at this point. I still feel like when all is said and done here, the balance of power in this company is going to fall right back to where it's always been. And that is Vince McMahon at the helm of his company. The company that he bought from his father, 40 years now. 40 years ago this year. He's been in charge for a very long time. He has had a stranglehold on this company. There's been a lot of talk in recent years about succession, who's going to take over, what about Triple H? He seemed to be the heir apparent at one point, and now it just seems comical. It doesn't even seem plausible. Largely because of his health, but also because, NXT failed up against AEW, and I don't think that did him any favors either, so I think we could put that shit to bed as far as Triple H is concerned. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to end up right back where we are now. The thing that people have to understand here is that Vince wields tremendous power in this company. And I'm sure you've heard from other people in recent days, as far as the board and as far as, the structure of this company is concerned. Vince, he has the voting power in this company. And the shares that he has have about 10 times the power of the shares that other investors in the company have. And whatever the percentages are, he has the majority. He has the majority of the power here in this company. Now, look, it could always be a case where when this thing is over, he's pressured into doing the right thing, and for the sake of and the health of the company, stepping aside. If that's the determination that they make, and maybe Vince says, for the good of WWE, I'm stepping aside, right? He can make that choice himself. They said in the statement today that he was voluntarily stepping back. I'm sure he didn't want to, but I can believe, okay, you know what? I'm going to take a back seat until this is over, right? Just for the sake of appearances, if nothing else. Would he do the same at the end of an investigation on a more permanent basis? That's a whole other ball of wax. I don't think so. But again, we're not there yet. I don't see him going quietly into the night. He's a very stubborn person. As anybody who has dealt with him or worked with him has said, this is his life. WWE is his life. He's very stubborn. I don't see this being a very easy, well, okay, sure. I'll just step aside and I'll, hang it on my yacht in Boca every day for the rest of my life. I'll finish out the rest of my days, sipping on margaritas there on the docks. He doesn't strike me as the kind of person who would feel fulfilled doing that. Putting aside what you and I may think of his creative abilities in recent years, the fact is, if you look at what he has done over the last 40 years since he took over from his father, and he has said that if his father knew what he was going to do when he bought the company, he never would have sold him his stock to begin with. He'd be rolling over in his grave. But he took that company, he took it national. He and Hulk Hogan together, they were that rocket fuel they needed to take that company into the stratosphere, right? So they took that company national. He grew it. He made millions of dollars. I grew up a fan of WWE, right? I look back fondly on those days of the golden era, into the new generation era, the Attitude Era, the Monday Night War period. I've been a wrestling fan my whole life. I owe a lot to Vince McMahon and what his vision was at that time and the stars that he created and WrestleMania and all the different events and all the everything, right? It's a big part of my life. It was a big part of my childhood. Because I'll sometimes get messages from people saying, well, how can you, always be so negative and always be so down on Vince and the company? You're a fan, and if it wasn't there, then blah, blah, blah. Look, my issues with the company have more to do with what I've been seeing on television over the last 5+ years. We're talking about the more recent stuff. We're not talking about the Vince McMahon of 1987 or the Vince McMahon of 1994 or 1998. In a lot of ways, this is a very different Vince McMahon. Creatively, this is a very different Vince McMahon than the one who was running the company back when it was not a public company, back in the day. But he took this company and look at what he's been able to do with it. He has grown this company into a multi-billion-dollar company. When the day comes that this company is sold, and I still believe that day is coming in the not-too-distant future, this company is going to sell for $6 or $7 billion. And it will be sold for $6 or $7 billion on the back of what he has done to grow it to this point. And look at where the company is now. They make money in spite of themselves. As awful as the television can be, and it is on most weeks, it doesn't matter. They're bulletproof. He has guaranteed money that is just flowing into the company from these different media outlets. He started the network, right? They wanted to get to 2 or 3 million subscribers. Well, that never happened. But you know what he ended up doing? He sold to Peacock for $1 billion and said, here you go. Guaranteed money. And when that deal is up, I think it's a 5-year deal. When that deal is up, somebody else will pay them a lot of money for it. Fox paid them $1 billion. NBC paid them $1 billion. They're dummy proof at this point. And so, yes, he deserves a lot of credit for doing that. In a lot of ways, he was a visionary. And WWE is as big as it is today because Vince McMahon was the chairman and the leader and the CEO. So we can give him credit for all that, and we could talk about him as far as his legacy is concerned. He will go down as the greatest, most successful promoter in the history of the wrestling business. You don't have to like him. You don't have to like the things he did to get there and the people that he stepped on and a lot of the shit that he's done. But you cannot deny the success that he's had. He is the greatest promoter in the history of the business, bar none. Nobody else even comes close. Nobody's left. He's the last man standing. But the fact is that he's going to be around at the arenas every week. He's probably going to be at Titan Tower in his office every day. Business as usual. Right? None of that is changing. So he'll be at the buildings. He'll be in the creative meetings. He'll be at the tower. This is all just window dressing. That's what this is. It's for appearance. It's for public perception. It's all just window dressing. Stephanie is CEO, stepping back. You know, usually when you hear stuff about somebody stepping back or stepping down, they step back. They step down. You think this guy's stepping back? He stepped into the ring tonight. He went the opposite direction. Usually when an announcement like that is made, that person, you don't see them, you don't hear from them for a while, if ever again. They made the announcement, and this fucking guy showed up at 8 o'clock tonight on television. Again, he was making a statement. He wanted to make it very clear. He's not going anywhere. And he is the real leader in this company. But again, the wild card here is what is going to happen as far as this investigation is concerned of what they turn up. That is what I am most interested in. I'm also most interested in, we may never know, but I'm also most interested in finding out who leaked this information, because this has been going on. End of March, April, right? That's when the emails were first sent to alert the board about the hush money payments and the NDA. And then the investigation began. So the board knew. Somebody had to leak this information. Come up with whatever conspiracy theory you want to. Stephanie's on the board. Triple H is on the board. Nick Khan's on the board. I would love to know who it was who leaked this and got the ball rolling to where we are now. I find all of this so much more fascinating than anything WWE has done on television in ages. Isn't it? It's just funny to me how it always works that way. All the backstage stuff and all this kind of stuff is just far more entertaining to me. Far more fascinating and fun to follow than any of the actual storylines. Remember, they make movies. That's what Vince said. They make movies. So as far as, John Laurinaitis, apparently he was not backstage at SmackDown tonight. He should not be backstage at SmackDown ever again. I'm not sure why they brought him back in the first place. Remember, he left for a while. And then they brought him back. I'm not sure why he's there to begin with. If anybody's going to fall on their sword, it's going to be Johnny Ace. Just a matter of time. So hopefully, adios. We don't hear about him again after this. But here's the conundrum with that. Let's say Laurinaitis goes. Now maybe it could always be a case where he says, you know what? I'm going to resign. I'm going to step aside. However it happens, whether he's forced out, he chooses to leave. When Laurinaitis goes, if Vince doesn't go with him, what does that say? Right? Both their names are wrapped up in this. And who knows how much other stuff their names might be wrapped up in. As far as having a relationship with this woman and maybe others. If Laurinaitis goes, if people say, well, Johnny Ace has to go and he ultimately goes, but then Vince stays. I mean, the answer is clear. Johnny Ace is expendable. If Johnny Ace goes away, if Johnny Ace is walking down the street and he falls into a manhole, right? Nobody will know and nobody will care. And the world goes on. It's not even a blip on the radar in WWE. Vince McMahon is a different story. Vince McMahon is not so expendable. Vince McMahon, he is WWE. Johnny Ace, he's one of the cogs on the wheel. It doesn't matter if he's there or not. So he's easily expendable. Vince is a very different story. And I don't think Wall Street would probably like it very much if Vince did go away. Wall Street doesn't tend to like uncertainty. If Vince went away for good, that would create a lot of instability and a lot of uncertainty with this company. Wall Street don't like that. The stock price probably wouldn't like that either. But I don't know, for my logical brain as I think about this, if Johnny Ace goes, how does Vince not go? How is that not a double standard? But there is another important aspect to this, and I want to just mention this because despite all the voting power that he does hold, this idea that, well, Vince owns the majority of the shares, and so whatever happens here, if he doesn't want to go, well, then there's nothing that can be done. That might not be true. And it was Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics who brought this up, that Vince McMahon has an employment agreement with this company. And his employment agreement states that the board of directors can terminate him, per this agreement, under certain conditions. And these conditions are outlined in the paperwork that was filed with the SEC. I have the paragraph with all the conditions and everything. I'm going to save this stuff for Sunday. I don't want to get into the legalese here. I want to move things along here. But this is a situation where if certain conditions of this employment agreement are met, if they find that he's violated some of these terms, then they could terminate him. Now, maybe there's some way that he can then, find his way back into power. Again, I don't know all the ins and outs as far as the full agreement is concerned, but this idea that the board's hands are tied and there's nothing they can do if they want him gone and he doesn't want to go, that may not be true. They may have the ability to say, we are going to terminate you because you violated this policy or you violated that policy. So it is possible, despite all the power he has, that it could end up being a situation like that. I just think unless something more comes out of this investigation, Jerry McDevitt has gotten this guy out of so many jams over the years, so many things that I'm sure are far worse than this. I just find it hard to believe that this, of all things, if this is all that it is going to be the thing that finally, after all these years, sinks the mighty Vince McMahon. I don't see it. I don't see that happening. I don't think that's what's ultimately going to be what does him in. But to wrap this up, I will say this. Even if you're like me and you believe that when this is all said and done, nothing is really going to change and Vince is going to be right in the seat that he's in right now, this is still the greatest jeopardy that he has been in almost 30 years, since the steroid trial in '94. Now, that was a little bit different because that was a criminal case, and he could have gone to prison for a number of years. We're not talking about prison here, so this is a little bit different. But as far as, the day-to-day running of the company, this is the greatest threat that he has been under in nearly 3 decades. This is a very real situation. Being in the Wall Street Journal, this is not the kind of Wall Street Journal publicity that this company wanted. This is a big deal. And if you don't think that he could potentially be sunk by this, then you're not paying attention. There are other CEOs who have gone down to similar types of things. Some of them not even that rise to this level. Jeff Zucker is an example. That in the last few years, maybe it was last year, Jeff Zucker was the head of CNN, and he was forced out. I think he resigned because of a consensual relationship that he had with another executive who worked for CNN. That violated network policy, and he was the number one guy there, and that's what did him in. Just him having a consensual relationship with somebody that worked in the same company. There was the CEO a few years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago, I think, the CEO of McDonald's. Similar situation. I believe he had a consensual, or what he claimed was a consensual relationship with another employee or another executive who worked for the company. That violated their policy. So they terminated him. They got rid of him. So we're talking about CNN and McDonald's. I mean, these are major companies here. These aren't even people that were necessarily accused of sexual misconduct as far as some really heinous things. It's just they didn't bother to report that they were having a relationship, or having a relationship like that was, prohibited in the first place. And then they found out about it, and that was it. They were gone. So let's see what happens here, because people just as big or bigger than Vince McMahon have been done in by scandals like this before. And, look, if they find that he violated some kind of company policy here, then that's where he really starts to get into a lot of trouble. So I would not be writing Vince McMahon's epitaph just yet. Although I do believe that he could be in some hot water, depending on what this investigation turns up. So I'll have a lot more on this on Sunday. Perhaps there'll be even more information between now and then that comes out. You guys know I got you covered on all this stuff. But there will be no bigger story this year than this story right here. And it could get even bigger depending on how this ends. So we didn't have to wait very long to hear what Vince McMahon would have to say, because he opened the show tonight. SmackDown was in Minnesota. And the first thing we heard when SmackDown went on the air tonight was, "No chance in hell." And I think there was also a message, frankly, in that too. Little subtle message in there. No chance in hell that this guy is going anywhere. Again, he was sending a message. Out comes Vince, and he gets huge ovation. They're singing his song, and they're giving him a huge babyface pop. I thought I heard some scattered boos in there, but they were drowned out by everybody who was just cheering for Vince. And he came down to the ring. By the way, not surprised by any of this. Not surprised by any of this. This guy could have a television segment where Baron Corbin stands in the middle of the ring and reads the fucking newspaper. For 3 segments, they'll go through 3 commercial breaks, and these people could come out in that same building the next week if they ran another show there, and they would bow. All hail. I expect nothing less from the WWE Universe. So Vince gets in the ring, and he gets on the microphone. He says it is a privilege to stand in front of the WWE Universe, especially here in this ring in Minnesota. He reminded the audience of the WWE signature that we see at the beginning of every show, then, now, and forever, which is also the same signature for the feud with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, then, now, and forever. And he put added emphasis, together. Remember, they added that in there now. It's no longer just then, now, and forever. It's then, now, forever, together, right? Together. Stand up for WWE. And he put an emphasis on that word together. And he then welcomed the crowd to SmackDown, and they played his music, and he walked out. This was a whole lot of nothing. He didn't say anything. This was to stroke his own ego. That's all this was. He would have loved to have talked. He would have loved to have been a nice chatterbox here on the show tonight, but I'm sure he took his lawyer's advice and kept his fucking mouth shut. Middle of an investigation going on, yeah. Was not very smart for him to be on the show in the first place. It was ridiculous for him to be on the show at all. It just shows me that he's not taking any of this seriously. Because he thinks that he's Teflon. He probably thinks he did nothing wrong. It's all, it's probably a conspiracy against him. Just like the government had a conspiracy against him back in 94. They're trying to take him down. Remember Stephanie McMahon? Never forget, the new CEO, Stephanie McMahon, one of her greatest moments on that 9/11 show. Talking about how, the government tried to take down my family once before. It's like the same thing. Everything to Vince is a fight. Everyone's always coming after him. It's always a fight. He's a fighter. I'm sure he would have loved to have opened his mouth, but he thought better of it tonight. But I'm surprised, you know what? If anything, I'm surprised that he didn't milk it for even more ratings and wait until the end of the show. Keep everybody watching until 9:57 and then walk out to the ring and come out and say, thanks for coming out tonight. Play his music and he goes to the back, copyright box on the screen, and we're out. I'm surprised he didn't just milk it all the way. So the WWE Universe, they're his safety zone. He knows when he comes out there, he's going to get that kind of reaction, and he knows it. He had to know he wasn't going to get booed out of the building tonight, right? You got all the families that are there in the building with their kids, and if they even know about any of this stuff, because you got to think half of them probably aren't even on social media reading press releases and reading stuff from the Wall Street Journal. And so half of them maybe didn't even know what was going on. The other half didn't care. Right? They're just there to have a good time. What a great guy. Thank you, Vince. So the WWE Universe to him is his safety zone, right? He can go out there and get that kind of reaction. I'm not so sure that his sponsors are going to give him that kind of reaction if this situation gets worse and they uncover more shit. He might not have a smile on his face at that point. He might not get the same kind of adulation that he got in the building in Minneapolis or wherever they were in Minnesota tonight. But when he's out there, he's in his bubble, he's in his safety zone, and he knows it. That's where he's most comfortable. They know. They know. Vince is their guy. So Matt Riddle rode down to the ring on his scooter. He dedicated his match with Roman Reigns tonight to Randy Orton, who he said had has a big operation coming up. He didn't specify what the operation is for. Fightful had the report the other day that Orton's been dealing with a pretty serious back injury. In fact, his back was all fucked up even before the tag team unification match, and they waited until he got his back good enough to where he can go out and at least work the match. And at that point, they knew he was going to be gone for a while. They were hoping, according to the report, they were hoping he wouldn't need surgery. Based on what Riddle said on the show tonight, I mean, he was laying on the lug for Orton pretty thick, to the point where I thought maybe Orton was going to come out and screw him over in the main event. I don't know why they would do that, because RK Bro is still probably top 2 most popular acts in the entire company. Honestly, RK Bro is probably the biggest thing behind Roman Reigns and maybe Brock. So even though they've been doing the RK Bro thing now for a while, I still feel like it's got juice. I don't know why you would break them up now. But he was just laying it on so thick. Randy, I love you, Randy. This is for you, Randy. Let's everybody chant for Randy. And I thought, well, maybe Randy is going to come out at the end of the show. Randy did not come out at the end of the show. And it makes me think that Randy might be undergoing that back surgery that Fightful talked about the other day. And if that is the case, then he is very likely going to be out for the rest of the year. So he dedicated his match tonight to Randy Orton. He said he misses him, and he got the fans to break into a thank you, Randy chant. We had a last laugh match between Madcap Moss and Baron Corbin. So when you're all wondering, why do people want Vince McMahon away from creative so badly, I'll point to segments like this. This has been going on now for months. Last laugh match. We were told by Michael Cole before the match, because you might be wondering, well, what is a last laugh match? What does that even mean? I feel like they're having a good laugh at our expense every time we have to watch these two in the ring together. Just because it's so played out at this point. It's not even that these matches are bad. You know, Corbin, I shit on Corbin, sometimes because I enjoyed Corbin when he was bum-ass, broke-ass Baron Corbin. Corbin is he's a pretty good heel. He knows what to do when he's out there. But he's got to be involved in something that I find interesting, and that just hasn't been the case for a very long time. Madcap Moss was a complete joke in that character, which I guess was the point. He would go out there, he would tell bad jokes. He was wearing that ridiculous outfit. Now at least he's got the makeover. He still has the stupid name. The name has to change. But he's got the makeover now. He's out there. He's more serious. And I think he could be a player for them. I really do. I think Moss could be a money player for this company to really build up and build around in these next few years. There's potential there with a different name, but there's potential there. But I was done with this feud at least a month ago. And they wanted to milk it for at least one more match. And so you wonder, what is a last laugh match? Michael Cole explained to us that the loser would be embarrassed and would be laughed out of the arena. That was the stipulation for this match. Moss was over because they were in Minnesota, which is where he's from. They had a basic match. It was fine, but again, I'm over this. I'm completely over this. I've been over this for a while. Corbin hit the deep six for a near fall. They brawled outside until Corbin grabbed him, slammed him into the ring post. Moss fired back by tossing Corbin into the announce desk. They both barely got back into the ring before the count of 10. And as soon as they got back into the ring, Moss dropped him with the punchline, which is his finish. He did not go for the pin. He stared at him. He was stewing. He was setting up for something else. What he was setting up for was a second punchline. So he hit his finish twice. Then he got the pin. And so Moss gets the last laugh. After the match, he literally got on the mic and he laughed. So he literally got the last laugh on Baron Corbin. In the back, and we weren't done with this yet. In the back, Street Profits were very excited to be at SmackDown tonight because it doesn't matter anymore. Raw guys are on SmackDown. SmackDown guys are on Raw. They call it a brand split. It's really not. It's all bullshit. So the Street Profits were excited to be there. They were so excited they never came out and did anything. They just were excited to be in the back, I guess, in catering. I don't know what they were so excited about. They didn't do anything. If anything, I would be fucking annoyed that I had to fly in for this shit. You flew me in for a show that I'm not normally on. Normally, this would be my day off. You flew me in for this. Although, to be fair, they could have taped this on Monday and spliced it into the show. So maybe they weren't there. But if they were, I'm just saying, if it were me, I'd be pissed. So they were excited to be there. They talked about Riddle against Roman Reigns. They picked Riddle to win. They're going to be challenging the Usos for the tag team titles and Money in the Bank. So then they cut back to the announcers at ringside, and they were trying to move on, but Corbin was still out there. And Corbin gets on the microphone. Shout out to Rocky Road. What's going on, Rocky Road, in the chat? And everybody else in the chat, too. I should say hello. If you are just filing on in, do me a favor and hit that like button. It's an easy thing for you to do. So Corbin is still at ringside. And he's got a microphone in his hand. And he cut a promo on Pat McAfee. He was very upset. He was very upset with McAfee. He said that McAfee is the one who coined the phrase bum-ass Corbin, which is true. He coined that phrase many months ago. Corbin told him to watch his mouth, said that if he didn't, he would drag him over the announce desk and into the ring, and then he would wish he was dead. He went to go walk away. Pat McAfee stood up at the announce desk, and the people popped here. Here's one of the biggest pops on the entire show, just for Pat McAfee rising to his feet. People love Pat. Pat has been one of their greatest hires in years. People love him. He's great in the role. And he's pretty good in the ring, too, if you've seen his matches. He encouraged the fans to join him in laughing Corbin out of the arena, called him a jabroni, and said that he sucked. No lies detected. This did not come across to me, because I know some people are going to think, oh, we're going to get a Pat McAfee-Baron Corbin feud. I don't think we are. It didn't come across to me like this was the start of a program between the two of them. It just came across to me like they wanted to use McAfee to get everybody in the crowd laughing at this guy on the way out. So whatever they need him for, if they need Pat McAfee to get the crowd, really riled up or amped up about something, he's really good at that, right? He's very charismatic. People love him. So I think it was just a matter of, all right, Pat, we need you to go and get the crowd to laugh at this guy. And also, if you look at it from a storyline consistency point of view, it would make sense that Corbin would, I don't know why it took him this long, but it would make sense that Corbin would be upset with him. Because for months now, McAfee's been poking fun at him and he would call him bum-ass Corbin. So Corbin finally said enough is enough. But I don't think this is the beginning of an actual feud between the two of them. Honestly, Pat was the most entertaining part about this whole thing. They're very lucky to have him. Backstage, Natalya was interviewed. She promised to beat some respect into Ronda Rousey and Money in the Bank. She said Ronda was not there tonight. She said the sharpshooter is the most devastating submission in WWE history, which is true. She said that the sharpshooter breaks bones and tendons and such. She said Rousey has had some success with the armbar, but the sharpshooter is legendary. Not because she's used it, but it is a legendary submission hold. And she said that Ronda brags that she has never quit in her career. She will face her Money in the Bank. And Natalya has promised that she will be the first person to make Ronda Rousey tap out. Good luck with that. Again, it's a placeholder opponent for her. This match does nothing to get me excited for Money in the Bank. I really don't give a shit about any of this. But Natalya is somebody that Ronda could go in there and beat. Again, it's not a match that's, I think, going to light the world on fire or anything like that. And because there's no drama, there's no doubt about who's going to go over in this match, right? Natalya is not going in there and winning the championship from Ronda Rousey. Ronda's going to win. Then the question after that is just who do they program her with next? Do they go with a Shotzi? Or do they go back to Raquel? Do they turn Raquel? Lacey Evans would seem to be the obvious choice. I think they're slowly building her up for something. She's still my early pick for Money in the Bank. I don't know what the whole field looks like yet, but we'll see. We'll see. Once we have all 8 names, we'll see. But this was very basic stuff. The New Day were out next. They were laughing at Corbin as he passed them on the way to the back. They were out to take on Jinder Mahal and the Sky-Scraping Shanky. That is his new nickname. Boy, they were getting that over tonight. When they have a new name to get over, they beat that shit into the ground. Every 5 seconds, the Sky-Scraping Shanky. Now, why is he skyscraping? Well, he's big, And because when he comes out, he goes like this. I guess this is the hand signal for scraping a sky, or, scrape. This is what Shanky does when he comes out. He's doing the Shanky shuffle, right? So he comes out. Jinder, of course, doesn't like it when he dances. But Shanky comes out anyway, and he's doing the Shanky shuffle. That's his new gimmick now. There was a loud chop to the chest that Shanky landed on Kofi in this match, and the announcers sold it like this guy just came off the top with a 630 splash. They sold this like it was the biggest thing that they had ever seen. I think Walter would like to have a chat with Shanky after he's jacking his move here. Xavier Woods, late in the match, he started playing with his trombone. Oh, that sounded lewd. He started playing the trombone. Shanky started dancing to the... That's what got Vince McMahon in trouble, playing with his trombone. Shanky started dancing to the trombone, right? So as Xavier is playing, Shanky is doing the Shanky shuffle, and Jinder is on the apron, and he sees this, and he's appalled by this. And he tags himself into the ring, orders Shanky out of the ring, and when he turns around, Jinder walks right into the Trouble in Paradise, and he gets pinned. I thought maybe Vince McMahon was going to come out. He was in such a cavalier mood tonight. I thought maybe he would come out and he would start doing the Shanky shuffle, right? Isn't that something that you could see him doing? Today of all days, he would just come out and rub it in everybody's face. You thought you were going to get rid of me, pal? Yeah. I don't think so, pal. Drew McIntyre and Sheamus, they were out next with Adam Pearce in the ring. They were going to resolve this situation from last week. If you remember on last week's show, both men were disqualified in their Money in the Bank qualifying match. Both guys basically accosted Adam Pearce in the back and threatened him and said, "You better put me in Money in the Bank." So this was the segment to resolve this dispute about how they were going to handle this situation. Pearce said the WWE management had made a decision. He said Sheamus was in. He was in the Money in the Bank match. And Sheamus, at that point, he started celebrating and he started rubbing it in Drew's face. And Drew had heard enough of this. And so he knocked him down and McIntyre clotheslined him out of the ring. Pearce stopped him before he can go out after Sheamus. He stopped him and said, wait a minute, whoa, hold on a second here. I wasn't done yet. The very next sentence I was going to say is that Drew McIntyre is also in the Money in the Bank match. So the big resolution is that instead of doing a rematch between them, they're both going to be in Money in the Bank. Drew and Sheamus are both in. Sheamus got back into the ring. Drew took him down with a Claymore kick. There's the Sheamus fan super chat. Shout out to Shin Akuma. Look at that guy. He looks just like him. He looked just like him. Look at that little ginger fan. So that means so far we have Seth Rollins, we have Sheamus, and we have Drew McIntyre, official, for the Money in the Bank ladder match next month. You know, McIntyre could win. He could win, and he could take that Money in the Bank briefcase, and he can call his shot early and say, I'm going to cash this in at Clash at the Castle. But he already did that, though. He already went on TV and basically called his shot already and said, I'm going to be the one to take the championship from Roman Reigns in September when we go over to the UK. So I think that would be kind of a letdown. Seth Rollins, right, I talked earlier about the fact that he has to be the odds-on favorite right now. And honestly, if anybody really could use a big win, it's Seth Rollins. He just came off 3 straight losses to Cody Rhodes, including a loss inside Hell in a Cell to a one-arm man. So if anybody could really use the win, it is Seth Rollins. So he's got to be the odds-on favorite at this point. I have pitched Sami Zayn as kind of the wild card here. I pitched this last week. Sami Zayn is kind of my wild card possibility for Money in the Bank this year. We don't know where the storyline is going to go with him and the Bloodline, and he's been an honorary member of the Bloodline, and he's been trying to get in their good graces. And obviously they don't want to have anything to do with him. Only now is he starting to figure that out. But I think there's a fun story to tell there where, you know, Sammy could win Money in the Bank. He could kind of hold it, say, look, hey, I got the briefcase. I'm going to hold on to it, right? I won this for you guys, so you don't have to worry about somebody else coming from behind, sneaking up on you, cashing in. You don't have to have eyes in the back of your head. You can trust me. I'm your oos. But eventually maybe that is the catalyst for a Sami Zayn babyface turn. He's been a heel now for so long, and he's great. He's entertaining as all hell in the role. But people forget, if you go back to his NXT days, he's an incredible babyface. Or at least he was. I would imagine he still could be. So there's some fun things you could do with Sami winning the briefcase as well. Sami, it might take some time for people, I think, to see him in that position just because he's coming off losing to the fucking, jackass guy at WrestleMania. He's been doing, a lot of comedy type stuff. He was running away every week on television from Drew McIntyre for weeks on end. But it wouldn't take much, I think, to rehab him. And, pivot to whatever this next turn would be with him in the bloodline and, move this story along a little bit and do something fun on that end and maybe, inch him towards a babyface turn. Or maybe Sami, would kind of realize that he's been strung along by these guys the whole time, and maybe he just decides to sell his briefcase. He'll sell it to the highest bidder. Who knows? There's any number of directions that you could go with it. But as far as the rest of the field is concerned, there's going to be 8 spots. WWE.com, said there's 8 people in the Money in the Bank match. We know 3 of them at this point. Sami is going to have a qualifying match with Shinsuke Nakamura on TV next week. I think Sami wins that so that he'll be in Money in the Bank. Ezekiel made a comment on TV on Monday night about him wanting to be in Money in the Bank, which sounds awful. Kevin Owens absolutely should be in Money in the Bank. The Miz has said he wants to be in Money in the Bank, so we'll see how they fill up these spots. Speaking of Sami, he was backstage outside Roman Reigns' locker room. He was pacing. He wanted to knock on that door, but he couldn't build up enough. Oh my God, the thing flying around over here. He couldn't build up enough courage to do it. All of a sudden, Kayla Braxton. That's why I got surprised. Kayla Braxton snuck up on me here. She's everywhere, this woman. She just peeked her head out of my closet and scared the shit out of me. This woman is everywhere. So she freaked out Sami Zayn, and she wanted to know if he had spoken to anybody in the bloodline, and he denied that there's any ill will. But he was, again, very afraid to knock on the door, and then he said, you know what, I got to use the bathroom. And then he left. When nature calls, you do what you got to do. So Sami had to go drop a deuce, he went off, and we didn't see him again for the rest of the show. We had a Money in the Bank qualifying match with Raquel Rodriguez taking on Shayna Baszler. Lacey Evans was on commentary. She said some stuff. I wasn't really paying attention, frankly, to what she was saying. But she's already qualified, so we already know she's going to be in the Money in the Bank match. These two, they had a very short, it was maybe 3 minutes long. They had a very short, dull match. Baszler went after Raquel's leg. Baszler avoided a power slam, landed a chop block. She hit a running knee strike for 2 and tried to apply the Kirifuda clutch. Raquel, though, reversed out of that into a one-arm Tejana bomb. It's no longer the Chingona bomb. It's now the Tejana bomb, and she qualifies for Money in the Bank. Not a surprise. Not a surprise, and it was the right choice. Raquel is the one, they've kept her very strong since they have called her up to TV. So they have kept her very strong. Ho, 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 ho. Look who it is. It is Supratik Boxy. By the way, that's not a dollar sign. I think people think he dropped $200. I don't know what denomination that is. That is not $200. That's a different denomination, but thank you, Supratik. I appreciate the super chat. I will read that in a little bit here. Sometimes people miss that. They think it's a dollar sign. It's something else. I think I got a super chat once, and I forgot what the denomination was, but I think it said something like 500 or something, and my eyes were like bugging out of my head, and then I realized what it was. So I was saying, Raquel is the one who is being pushed right now. Raquel is the one who is being put over pretty strong. And she really should be in that Money in the Bank match because they desperately need to have new faces, new stars that they create, both in the men's division and in the women's division. And so she belongs in that Money in the Bank match. It's too bad that Shayna couldn't find a spot in there too, but this was Raquel's match to win. So next week, it's going to be Shotzi Blackheart against Aaliyah. in another Money in the Bank qualifying match. We were supposed to get Max Dupri coming out and revealing his first male model, right? This was going to be his first client from Maximum Male Models. Last week, we were supposed to get the announcement. And by the way, for those wondering, that people were still making comments in the chat thinking that was $200. It was not $200. It was $2. So it just goes to show you, you gotta pay attention sometimes. But we all love Super Teak here and here. But thank you for the $2.50. I appreciate that. So last week we were supposed to get the big reveal of who his first client would be. And then they cut that segment from the show and they made up some bullshit about how he was stuck in traffic in Europe or whatever. But for sure, he's going to make the announcement about who his client is next week, right? And we knew that the main event was coming up next. They said that Riddle was coming up next. And I said, would they cut him again? So we come back and there's a spotlight on the ring. The lights are dimmed and there's a spotlight on the ring. And nobody's in the ring. So then we cut to the back, and there is Adam Pearce. He is in the back with Max Dupri, who is berating him for the lighting. Says, this is not the lighting that I expected. This is not the lighting that I asked for. This is completely unacceptable. People aren't going to be able to see their beautiful faces and their hard bodies. And he said that Adam Pearce was denying the people titillation of their juices of guilty pleasure. That's what Vince McMahon said to the WWE board. You are denying me the titillation of my juices and my guilty pleasure. That is what they are investigating him for. There's too much titillating going on in WWE. So he told him to get it right, and that was it. So I don't know if this was a case where, again, they had to cut the segment, because remember, Vince McMahon was not supposed to be on the show tonight until earlier today. The show had to be rewritten. So it's very possible that they were going to do the Max Dupri reveal of his first client, and then he got cut again. And this is all a wonderful sign for Eli Drake, right? This is a wonderful sign for Eli Drake, LA Knight, whatever you want to call him. What a great sign that it is that yet again, his segment, potentially, is cut 2 weeks in a row. Things are going great for old Max Dupri. About as well as I would have expected them to be going. But also very interesting that they mentioned again that the Viking Raiders are on their way back to SmackDown. They're going to be here next week. So the Viking Raiders are going to make their return next week, and it makes me wonder what a swerve it would be if his first clients, the first two clients of Maximum Male Models, turn out to be Ivar and Eric of the Viking Raiders. Can you even imagine that? They send them out there in suits. They're all shaven. You got fucking Ivar out there with the open collar, you know. He's got some kind of brand new cologne, some Dolce & Gabbana that he's walking around in. He's got a fucking expensive watch on his wrist, fancy shoes, well-pressed pants, hair slicked back. We get the new Viking Raiders here. Get Ivar out there doing the duck lips. I put nothing past these people. This will be their new reimagining of the Viking Raiders. Backstage, we had Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser. Of course, Walter won the Intercontinental title from Ricochet last week. Every time I look at that Intercontinental title, you know, when they first unveiled it, I thought, all right, that looks pretty good, actually. I wish it had a little bit of color in it, maybe put a little blue on the belt, you know, where the globes are, but it's not bad. But I feel like now, every time I look at this title, it looks worse. I don't know why they got rid of the other championship. There was no need for that title to be changed. They should have just kept it exactly the way it was. This is not the Intercontinental title. I don't know what this is. But Walter stood there and Kaiser was doing the talking, and he said, you know, the Intercontinental Championship was created in South America, and it was won by a French Canadian. And the greatest champions were international stars from Canada, Mexico, and certain countries in Europe. He said the title was besmirched by people like Ricochet. And he promised that the title would never be held by an American again. And then Gunther declared himself the new Intercontinental Champion. And that was the end of that segment. So, long live Walter. He's got a useless title on his shoulder. Nothing will change. Walter himself is not going to be able to do anything with that title because the title will always be booked as a joke. But it's something at least for him to carry around. It's something for him to do until finally they pull their heads out of their asses and they move this guy higher up the card. And he's the one challenging Roman Reigns or Drew McIntyre for the top championship in the company. For now, it's something for him to hold. Ricochet, by the way, he gets his rematch on TV next week. It will be Ricochet challenging Gunther and losing again. They're going to have a match for the championship. So at 9:27 p.m., finally, Roman Reigns came out of hibernation. 657 days now as the Universal Champion to defend his titles against Riddle. This was his first title defense since WrestleMania. They cut to commercial 60 seconds into the match. The bell rings, the match starts. Riddle is fast and furious going after Roman. 60 seconds later, it's on to commercial. When they come back, Reigns was in control. Riddle made a comeback. He landed a floating bro that got a great near fall. Great near fall on that floating bro. The people, they badly wanted to see Riddle win that title. The people were into Matt Riddle here on this show. And it's cool to see, because when he first signed with WWE, they, put him in NXT. I was a big fan of his work even before he came in. I was watching some of his work on the independent scene. He did, work in Evolve and other promotions as well. And he was great. And I said they would be crazy not to sign him. And I actually wanted to see him in New Japan. That's really where I wanted to see him. But they're very, over in Japan, they're very strict about certain things. And so he obviously is a fan of a certain weed. That would not go over very well in Japan. I think that had more to do... I think that more than anything had to do with why we didn't see him over there. But I still think it would have been cool to see him have a little stint there in Japan. But they signed him and put him in NXT. And I said, if they play their cards right with this guy, he is going to be a massive star for them. And when they called him up, they really leaned into the comedy and the goofiness and stuff. I think a little too much. But he has carved out a really nice spot for himself in the company, and the people really do like him. And what we've seen in recent weeks since Randy Orton went down in storyline, he's coming out on TV, he's being more serious, he's showing more emotion, trying to get revenge, for Randy. We've seen a different side of him that really works, and I'd like to see more of that. And he went out there tonight and he had himself a hell of a match, and the people were hanging on to every near fall in this match. They desperately wanted to see him win that championship. Reigns caught him with a huge Uranage that Michael Cole called a choke slam for a near fall. Reigns dropped Riddle on top of the announce desk the same way that Randy Orton does. And then Roman looked into the camera and he started talking trash to Randy as they cut to another commercial. Back from the commercial, Riddle gave Roman a back suplex onto the announce desk, but he got sent into the ring post. Crowd was chanting for Randy. They were chanting for someone who wasn't even in the match. Riddle caught Reigns coming back into the ring with the Orton draping DDT, and he was setting up for that RKO, and the crowd was buzzing, and they're starting to build, and they're waiting for it. Roman blocks the RKO, and then he hits a Superman punch for another close near fall. Riddle got his shoulder up at the last possible second. They got a "This is awesome" chant. Reigns set up for the spear. And as he's charging in towards Riddle, Riddle catches him and drops him with an RKO. It was a great spot. The place exploded. And everybody came up out of their seats. Riddle covered him. And Roman kicked out at 2.5. Oh, so close, but not close enough. Riddle goes up to the top rope. He hits the floating bro. And then he gets up. And he sets up for another RKO. But this time, Roman stuffs the attempt. Riddle came off the ropes for a springboard, but he got speared in midair, and Roman Reigns pins Matt Riddle to retain his championships. Roman Reigns will live to reach 658 days as the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. And again, the vast majority of that was spent as Universal Champion. Obviously, he's only been WWE Champion for a couple of months. Roman got on the mic, and he says, there's nobody left. He said, he told us a while back, he and the wise man, they told us some time ago that he was here to wreck everybody and then he was going to leave. And that's exactly what he's here to do. He wrecked Matt Riddle, everybody else he's wrecked, and now he's going to leave. But not before he asks for Minneapolis to acknowledge him. And then he goes to leave. And you knew somebody was going to come out because they still had a few minutes left in the show. So he goes to leave, and all of a sudden we hear Brock Lesnar's music hit. Everybody cheers because they haven't seen him in a couple of months. We haven't seen him since WrestleMania. Out comes Cowboy Brock. He's got the hat on. He's got the flannel. Farmer Brock is back. Only thing missing was his tractor. He comes down to the ring. He puts his hand out to shake hands with Roman Reigns, who's very skeptical about this gesture from old Farmer Brock. As he should have been, because Brock picked him up on his shoulders. He gave him an F5. He gave F5s to Jimmy and Jay. And that is how they went off the air tonight. The big return of Brock Lesnar. And it was almost a full year ago at SummerSlam when Roman Reigns beat John Cena. That Brock Lesnar's music hit and Brock came out, and that's how SummerSlam ended. SummerSlam now is 6 weeks away, and we had the exact same thing tonight. Roman Reigns beats another guy. Brock Lesnar's music hits, he comes out, gets a big pop, and now we are set up for another match with Brock Lesnar against Roman Reigns. So Randy Orton must be going under the knife for real. That wasn't just a thing that Riddle mentioned. I would imagine they think that Randy, or maybe he flat out is scheduled. I don't know. I'm sure we'll find out in the next few days whether there's a surgery date or if they just think that there's a very good chance he's going to be going under the knife. It must be a pretty serious back injury if he's got to have surgery for it. And again, that will keep him out for the rest of the year at least. There's no telling how long he'll be out for if he has the surgery. But the rumored plan for SummerSlam had been Roman defending the championship in the main event against Randy Orton. They had big plans for Randy Orton this summer, and that now is all out the window. And so now we know what their plan B is. Their plan B is to bring back Brock Lesnar, put him against Roman fucking Reigns again, then, now, and forever. These guys are going to be old and gray, and we're still going to be getting Roman Reigns against Brock Lesnar. That ponytail that Brock has in the back of his head is going to be all gray. Roman's hair is going to start to thin. He's going to get some of those wrinkles in the face. He's going to start looking like Sika. These two are still going to be wrestling for the championship on television. This will never end. This is like the new John Cena versus Randy Orton of our generation. It is official, though. WWE announced it on their Twitter when the show was over. It'll be Brock Lesnar against Roman Reigns in a last man standing match next month at SummerSlam, because these guys aren't coming anywhere near Money in the Bank. So that's going to be your SummerSlam main event. They are absolutely terrified to try someone different. And I know that AJ Styles is hardly different, and he's 40-something years old. And Bobby Lashley is hardly different, and he's going to be 46 years old. Think about that. As great as he looks, 46 years old, not too bad. But hardly new. I understand that. But it would be a match that we haven't seen during this run here for Roman, right? It's been a while since we've seen Roman in the ring with AJ. It's been a few years. And boy, if anybody could use some rehab on TV, it's AJ Styles. I didn't think, going into a feud at WrestleMania with Edge that a couple months later I would be thinking, oh, this is still going on. But here we are. But it would have been nice to get something different. And they are just so terrified to try something new. They have a stadium to fill. Tickets for SummerSlam are not selling as fast as they expected them to. They still have a lot of tickets to move in Nashville. And so they go back to their tried and true. They go back to the same match that they did at WrestleMania, the same match they were going to do at Day One, the same match they did in Saudi Arabia last year, the same match they've done time and time and time and time and time again for years now, they go right back to the same thing. And it's probably going to end up being WrestleMania 31 all over again. As I said earlier in the stream, Seth Rollins has got to be the odds-on favorite to walk out with the Money in the Bank this year. Everything is set up for it. Brock Lesnar against Roman, Seth cashes in, makes it a triple threat. My question is this, because they're going to end up separating the titles. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And they'll do it before Survivor Series because they need them separate if they want to do their whole Raw versus SmackDown champion against champion thing. So if they're going to do it, they may as well just not even wait, and they may as well do it as soon as possible. They may as well do it now. The match is announced for the WWE Universal Championship. Okay, it is a unified title. He walks out there with 2 belts, but they made it very clear every time they talk about it. Michael Cole on commentary at WrestleMania, he flat out said, the titles have been unified. It was a unification match. So it is effectively defended as one title. How might they be able to explain not having both titles on the line? Because really, it's the WWE title that they need to get away from Roman Reigns. Whether Brock takes it back, whether Seth cashes in and wins it, you take the WWE title back to Raw. I don't know how they're going to get around that because right now it's the unified title that is being defended. And I can't imagine that Seth Rollins is going to beat Roman Reigns, take both belts, and we're not going to get Roman and Drew for at least the Universal title at Clash at the Castle. I can't imagine that we don't end up getting that. So I'm not sure exactly how they're going to, work that out. But, here we are 7 years later, and history may well be repeating itself at SummerSlam next month. 7 years and nothing has really changed. You look at the rosters right now, you look at people that they have on there. Bianca Belair has been a success story. Raquel Rodriguez on SmackDown, right? They're only first now starting to push her. Austin Theory is going to be, they probably look at him as their next John Cena. He'll probably be working a match with John Cena at SummerSlam this year. Rhea Ripley. It's not like there aren't new faces on the roster, and some of them are first now finally starting to get pushed, and they're trying to get them over. But by and large, they have done a terrible job, an absolutely horrendous job of elevating new stars. I mean stars. I don't mean people. I mean stars to the top of the card. Top of the card does not look very different than it did years ago. That's an indictment on the company. That is an indictment on creative, and it's one of the many reasons why I was hoping, when I initially read that announcement this morning, that Vince would not just be stepping back from the CEO position, but he would be stepping back creatively, because I think it would be kind of interesting to see, how do they do without him? On a temporary basis, it doesn't matter, because even if Vince took a step back from creative, that he would still have his claws in it, right? Bruce would be doing whatever Vince wants to do. I'm talking about just cleaning house altogether. Getting a fresh pair of eyes, fresh vision in there, fresh blood. As long as you have people like Vince McMahon, 76 years old, trying to come up with great creative stories on these shows, and Bruce Pritchard, who's basically like a mini Vince without the muscles, nothing is ever really going to change. I mean, that's all Bruce really is. It's like mini me. He just goes along with whatever Vince wants him to do. Why do you think Vince brought him back? That's why he loves him so much. He's not going to challenge him. He's not going to object to his ideas. He's not going to be like a pain in the ass like probably Paul Heyman was back in the day when he was on the writing team. We know Paul Heyman obviously clashed with Vince. Vince was not happy with his vision because Vince put him in charge of Raw and he didn't even last a year. He fired him as the executive director of Monday Night Raw. He doesn't like being challenged. He likes what he likes, and that's it. I'm talking about totally cleaning house and trying some new people out there, trial by committee, whatever it is. Maybe it shouldn't just be one person. But until that happens, and I've always said this, nothing will ever really change until Vince is out of the picture. Creatively, out of the picture. He can run the business end. He's done pretty good with that. Creative is a different story. I think the fact that they have to go back to this again is absolutely an indictment on the creative team. I hesitate to even use that word team because it is the creative vision of one person. Check the Twitter poll. Here are the SmackDown results. 33% of you have given this show a thumbs up. 23% of you have given this show a thumbs in the middle. And look at that. A whopping 44% of you have given this show a thumbs down. Not very happy about SmackDown tonight. I will say, though, the Roman and the Riddle match was very good. The main event on this show was very good. Everything else on this show sucked. Everything else on this show you could just completely forget about. Totally forgettable. Even the Vince appearance. Totally forgettable. But that was a fun main event with Roman Reigns and Matt Riddle on this show. Before I get to your Super Chats, I want to let you guys know, boy, you guys have been cashing in. You talk about cashing in Money in the Bank. Fuck Money in the Bank. You got to cash in on this. audibletrial.com/Solomonster. Because right now, if you use our link, you can get the Jon Moxley book. Look at Vader. Look at that. On your screen right now. Peanut Butter Vader time. Vader is all excited. You know why? Because he just bought Jon Moxley's book. And he got it for free. He didn't have to buy shit. That book's going to cost you $21. Not if you use my link, it won't. Sign up for a 30-day trial of the Audible service. You can download Mox for free. Narrated by Jon Moxley himself. I've gotten a lot of feedback from you guys. Some of the excerpts from the book. I'm going to play an excerpt actually on the podcast on Sunday. I'll play like 60 seconds of it. It's a lot better to hear it in Moxley's own voice than it is to read it on the printed page. So anyway, go ahead and sign up. audibletrial.com/Solomonster. And make sure you cash in on Mox. You can thank me later. Get yourself a free book. Alrighty, let's dive on into your Super Chats here. We gotta scroll back here. I'm sure you guys have a ton of questions. So lay them on me. Lay them on me here. We begin with Joseph Brooks. Here on the stream, $9.99. Says that if Undertaker still had his WrestleMania streak, how would you book the story of Sting against The Undertaker? Or even after the streak ended, how would you book it? Would Sting play the mind games on Taker like he did in the NWO? Yeah, I think he would have to. I mean, there's not going to be a lot of physicality between them. I would not want the two of them getting physical at all. Going into WrestleMania, I would try to keep them apart as much as possible, so I think it's more mind games. Yeah, the idea that I pitched a few years ago was you do a double retirement match. You make it very clear going into it that this is going to be the final match for both guys. Only question is who goes out a winner and who goes out a loser. Undertaker would go out the winner. Sting would lose. But it would have been the match I think that people wanted to see more than Sting and Triple H. But you have that double retirement stipulation. That really juices that match up a lot. And that's how I would have done it. Meaty Sentai VA. So does this mean the Alliance won? You know what? I guess they did. I guess they did. Yeah, in the end, the Alliance won. Although Shane is still on the outs. They went with Stephanie as the CEO, not Shane. Hyru, thank you for the $20, my friend. The only way I can get on board with another Brock versus Roman match is if one fall is for the Raw title and the other is for the SmackDown title. But even that is bad because they're both part-timers. Should have been Riddle at Money in the Bank and Lashley at SummerSlam. You know, I thought that's what they were going to do. It was Riddle at Money in the Bank. And I think that was the original plan. Once they decided that Roman was not going to be on the show, they bumped it to TV. They said it's not a big enough show for him to be on. Ollie, what's going on? $50 super chat. Holy shit. I got an email from you earlier. I did get it. I have not had a chance to read it because this day has been ridiculously busy, but I will read that first chance I get. He says, if you or anyone you know is suffering from substance abuse, Don't be afraid to ask for help. Admitting that you have an addiction and expressing the desire to overcome that addiction is incredibly courageous and brave. Take one step at a time. I agree. I think that is well said. And again, I hope you are doing well. I know you've, from what I could glean, I know there have been some challenges, but hopefully right now at this moment you are doing okay. And man, $50 super chat. What can I say? Thank you, my friend. That is very kind of you. Off Leather Wings, you saw Impact brought back the Reverse Battle Royal. I heard about that, yeah. Soon they're going to be bringing back the barbed wire Christmas tree. Wasn't that an old specialty of the old TNA? James Cooper, $9.99, was really hoping we would get Seth Franklin Rollins against the Tribal Chief at SummerSlam. Why do fans seem to sour on a babyface after the chase for a title? Bad booking, or is there just no interest most times? I think the booking has a lot to do with it. And also, you know, the fans are very fickle. Fans are very fickle. Very fickle fans. Suffering in college. Well, let me go back to what he just said. As far as Rollins against Reigns, if they wanted to, when Hell in a Cell was over and Rollins came out before he hit Cody with the sledgehammer, they could have turned Seth, and Seth would have. I mean, you put Seth in there against Roman, with Seth now, you know, edging more towards the babyface side. He was basically the de facto babyface anyway in their match at the Royal Rumble. And there was definitely a story left between them because Roman didn't beat him. He didn't beat him clean in the middle of the ring. So, if they wanted to, yeah, they could have built up Rollins against Reigns at SummerSlam in the main event, and they chose to go a different way. They chose to go with a different part-timer. Suffering in college. Sounds like me. The $14 super chat. They really should have gotten AJ or Lashley instead of Lesnar. Two guys Roman has not dealt with in this run. And there's a story there with Lashley losing the title on a technicality. You're speaking too much sense. Bobby Lashley never did lose the WWE Championship. So there was a story there. It was a gimme. But they didn't see it that way. Rizzo with the $20. Thank you, Rizzo. What a week of wrestling news. And tonight, I thought it was brilliant by Vince. Get people to tune in. And he barely talked. Also, not a fan of doing Reigns against Brock. Again, the podcast on Sunday might be 5 hours with all the news. It will definitely not be 5 hours. In fact, I'm going to try my very, very hardest to make sure that it is no longer than usual. I don't know if I'll succeed, but I'm going to try my hardest. Rizzo with another $20. Also, where is the dancing Solomonster at the beginning of the stream? He doesn't come out every week. You got to save him for the special occasions. Tetsuya Aito. When Brock came out, Mark Henry said, "It's time for the main event." DJ Williams with the $10. Feels like we're in an episode of Dark Side of the Ring. I feel like Vince McMahon, you could probably do an entire season of Dark Side of the Ring on him alone. Sean Blandford with the $20 super chat. I am in Minneapolis. The stench of desperation coming from Vince and WWE could be smelled from miles away. From his sad final grasp for control to doing Brock again because they failed to create new main event talent, it is sad. It was a very transparent thing what he was doing at the beginning of the show. Again, if you tuned in late, I talked about the Vince stuff at the beginning. I will get into even greater detail about it on the podcast on Sunday, but it is very clear from seeing what they did tonight that all this was designed to do was just make it very clear to people in the company, to people outside the company, to the media, that he is still the one in control. And in his view, that is not going to change. Mr. Andrew with the $4.99. Can we banish the people that said WrestleMania was going to be the last time Roman and Brock face each other? They are going to fight every year until Vince is gone. Dr. Scorpio, no joke. When Roman said that, I was expecting Goldberg to come out again. Thank God I was wrong. You got demotion with the $4.99. Solomonster, you speak the truth and you speak it well. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Diarla Renford. Do you think that Stephanie will have a major shift in power, like firing Kevin Dunn and bringing Triple H back into a major position? Her husband is already back in the office working full-time. Her husband also suffered a near fatal heart attack and is still recovering. He almost died. So I don't think Triple H needs to be back in any kind of a major position right now. Maybe eventually they could, increase his workload or something and give him something more to do. But I don't think that she wants to be putting more work on her husband right now. But again, I don't think that Stephanie has any real power. Stephanie is not going to go on a firing spree. She's not going to get rid of all of Vince's guys and install her own puppet regime. It's not going to be anything like that. She does not have any real great power right now until a final decision is made. And again, she's an interim CEO. Stephanie is not going to go in there as the interim CEO and start making moves like firing Kevin Dunn. So I think, again, people who think that she's going to go in there and start making wholesale changes need to dial it back and pump the brakes a little bit, because I think you're going to be very disappointed if that's what you're waiting to see, if she's going to do that. The answer is no. I don't see that happening. Mr. Flashy. If Seth cashes in, does he cash in for one title or both? Right now, the match is for both belts. It is for both championships. Anderson Blitz. When I wish for an epic month of wrestling on my birthday, this month everything has been going on with all of the different news. This is not what I would have expected. Well, happy birthday to Anderson. I guess we have you to blame. Everybody can blame old Anderson Blitz for all of this crazy news. Spicy dried chicken without flavor. I will admit, AEW's booking of their shows at times on Dynamite can be underwhelming, oversaturated, and overexposing to the point that it burns me out. Yeah, it's not perfect. It's just it moves too fast and they try to fit too much stuff in. AEW is largely fun to follow, but it definitely has its flaws. And it's been showing. It has been showing recently. They've had some great shows, but you can definitely see where those, you can see where those weaknesses show up on TV. Shoeless Joe. Somebody buy Joe some shoes, please. $3 super chat. Before Shawn Michaels, was Randy Savage the original Mr. WrestleMania? I would think that he probably was. I would call him Mr. WrestleMania. He had that great match with Steamboat at WrestleMania 3. He won the championship tournament at WrestleMania 4. He was in the main event defending against Hogan at WrestleMania 5. 6 was a step down. He had the mixed tag against Dusty. But then 7 was a huge comeback year. That great, career-ending match with the Ultimate Warrior. And then he won the championship from Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8. Pretty good run, I would say. So I would call him Mr. WrestleMania. Dan Richards, those NDAs explain why Vince was never mentioned during Speaking Out. That was the shocking part of Speaking Out, was who wasn't mentioned. It's a great point. That's a great point. But it's also, I think, important to note, right now, all we know is that he had what was allegedly a consensual relationship with an employee. I do question if he's paying millions of dollars out to people for what was a consensual relationship. It's very fishy to me. But if they have all these other NDAs out there, it stands to reason that there might be more than just quote-unquote consensual relationships. Right now, though, that's all it is. Speaking Out was very different. Speaking Out was more about sexual assault and rape and very serious stuff. And there's been no allegations, with this yet that have been made against Vince. That's why they're doing the investigation. That's why I always say, when I talk about this stuff and I say that I think Vince in the end is going to still wind up exactly in the position that he's in now. I put that little asterisk there because who knows what they're going to uncover. Just think of the shit that this guy has probably done or been involved in over the years. Who knows what they might come up with. That's why I think this story could get much bigger than it already is. EJ Slemp with the $4.99. Someone asked Sean Ross Sapp today if something comes from this. Could WWE be forced to reevaluate how they handled Theory and Riddle? No, I don't think that's gonna change anything as far as that goes. And the Riddle stuff they knew about. Riddle, I think, was very upfront with them about this stuff, with the allegations that were made by that woman before he came, into the company. I think they knew about that already. Spicy dry chicken without flavor. After Forbidden Door and Blood and Guts, I have decided I will be taking a break from watching AEW Dynamite during the summer. I will focus more on New Japan. Near the Hodgkin's ass kicker. I thought that said kisser. The Hodgkin's ass kicker. It is the summer of Near. Damn right it is. Shout out to Near. Hope that you are feeling well and doing well. We are all hoping the same. Diarlo Renford. $25 super chat. Not a wrestling super chat, but what did you think? What did you think about the David Wright, Jose Reyes Mets era, and what do you think of the Johan Santana and Jason Bay signings at the time? And do you think Ichiro Suzuki is a Hall of Famer? I think Ichiro is a Hall of Famer. David Wright and Jose Reyes, man, they were the future. They were supposed to be the ones that led that team to championships, and unfortunately it did not happen. Jason Bay, I don't remember being overly excited, and that turned out to be a bust. Johan Santana, obviously, he had his Mets moments that'll be remembered forever, and then all those allegations, speaking of all the stuff we were just talking about, he had some pretty serious stuff levied at him. And that was the end of him. Aussie of Steel. As much as I like Cowboy Brock, seeing him against Reigns again, no thanks. Paolo. $5 super chat. What I found funny in the bottom line of FS1 today was where they show game scores, sports news, and etc. It was phrased as Vince McMahon voluntarily stepped down. Well, he did. I mean, he voluntarily stepped down. That's what the press release said. That's how they announced it. He gritted his teeth as he voluntarily stepped down. Shin Akuma, thank you for the $2. Temjin Zephyr with the $9.99. What's going on, Temjin? Managed to play the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game with 5 of my longtime friends, and I will say that we had a blast playing the game, and you will not be disappointed. I'm looking forward to it. It came out yesterday on Steam. I have not even had a chance to think about buying it because this week has been ridiculous. And next week is going to be even more ridiculous, and I'm not even going to be around for part of the week. I'm going to be out of state for a few days, which is why I will not be live on Wednesday for Dynamite, just FYI. I'll go live on Thursday, probably Thursday night. We'll do the Dynamite stream. So, and then we're heading into Forbidden Door. I have a House of Glory show coming up next weekend, the same weekend as Forbidden Door. I got to prepare for that. So, I'm hoping before the month is over, I'll be able to sit down and maybe play the game. But, I don't know. I'll get to it at some point. Food Hive says he's always late. You're always late to the party. You're always late to the party. Why should this be any different? Diarlo Renford, Bobby Bonilla Day is coming in 2 weeks. Oh boy, I forgot about that. That's right, Bobby Bonilla. He gets his annual $1 million check from the New York Mets. I think he still gets paid until 2035. Is it 2035? I think he gets a check every year. What a great deal that was. Bob the Builder. What is the percentage of Sasha Banks showing up at AEW this year? If she gets her release officially, then I think it's pretty high. Impractically Christopher, $30 super chat. Bully the Clown. I missed that one. Today is my birthday and my first live stream. What a day to pick. Wonder why they don't do McAfee against Roman, even if it's a filler feud to kill time. Because you don't want to do Roman Reigns against your announcer. That's why. He says, though, it's a fresh face that people like and a new opponent for Roman. I like Pat, but no. You don't do Roman Reigns against your announcer. You do Roman Reigns against the announcer, and if Pat has any offense against Roman Reigns, how does that make Roman Reigns look? The guy who sits at the announce desk every week should not be able to go in there with the most dominant champion they've had in probably decades and take him to the limit. He should not go in there with Roman Reigns and be competitive at all. Roman Reigns should just pound him into the ground. So I think that would be a bad idea. I like Pat, but that would be a bad idea. Shin Akuma is the knife edge chop and improvised spot. I don't know what you mean by that. Yeah, I don't know what you mean by improvised spot though. Bobby's World, $10 super chat. Never thought this day would come. Figured Vince would avoid all scandal, get his battery changed, and be around for another 200 years. As you said earlier, crazy times that we are in. All the best to you. Crazy times indeed. Corey Blake, $20. Hey, Solomonster, what a crazy week in wrestling. With that being said, so there's Boombox Brock. There's Boombox Brock. He should do the Shanky Shuffle. See, now, if Boombox Brock had walked out at the end of the show tonight, I might not be as down on what we saw as I was. I might be a little more excited about that. But Corey says, with that being said, it seems WWF, I love how he still calls it WWF, is going back to their formula in Brock against Roman. Due to the lack of main event stars, do you think Braun Breaker will get the call up soon? I don't. I mean, you're talking soon as in the next couple of months, 3 months. No. Now, we have a draft at the end of the year. I could see him being drafted to Raw or SmackDown. But that's later in the year. Super Teak Boxy with what everybody thought was a $200 super chat, but in fact was a $2 super chat. We love Super Teak all the same here in this chat. Says, have to assume the board was about to make the investigation as hogwash. Someone inside didn't like it and leaked. While the board can fire him, if the sycophants are the majority, he will escape. That's an interesting point. You know, whoever leaked this to the Wall Street Journal, did they leak it because the board was going to try to conceal it? I mean, that I don't know about that. I know there are family members that are on the board who could have tried to, or who may have wanted to suppress it. Honestly, I'm not even sure that there are family members who wouldn't have wanted this to come out. But it's an interesting thing to wonder. Maybe somebody was upset because they thought this was going to be buried and they said, fuck it, I'm going to leak it. Possible. Makes you wonder. Rizzo, where has Professor Gotti been? I don't know. I don't know where the professor has been. I'm worried about him. I hope he didn't get whacked. Diarlo Renford with the $30 Bully the Clown super chat. Who is the best wrestler in your opinion to change their wrestling style, like, for example, Steve Austin and Masahiro Chono both went from technicians to brawlers? Changing their style? I don't know. I'm trying to think of some of my favorite wrestlers who changed their style. I can't really think of anybody who had to change their style. Yeah, I don't know. Austin would be the most notable because you look at the matches he was having in 96, or even go back further when he was in WCW with Stunning Steve. Very different than the Steve Austin we got in 98 onward because of the neck and the knees. I don't know of anybody else off the top of my head who had to radically, change their style due to injury that... Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. People are mentioning like the Great Muta and stuff. that had more to do, yeah, with injuries and wear and tear on the knees and stuff. But again, I don't know. Did they radically change? They just got old. There's a difference between getting old and not being able to do what you used to do and just changing your style in the middle of your career. The only reason you would really do that, I think, is if you were hurt. You'd have to adapt. You'd have to, adopt a new moveset. But that usually comes with age. You got to slow down. You can't do some of the stuff you used to do when you were younger. Honestly, that's what really impresses me the most about someone like Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio has been wrestling since he was 13 years old. I mean, he's been wrestling since 1989. And when I was watching him in WCW during the Nitro days and how he used to fly around and everything, I mean, that was 25 years ago. And he's still out there. He moves around that ring. He's flying, man. I mean, he's got speed. He's doing a lot of the same moves that he used to do. And that's with a lot of years in between where it looked like his career might be over. His knees were just beaten to shit. I know he's gone down to, Colombia. He's had stem cell treatments done on his knees. But you talk about somebody who looked like maybe he was on his way out. And he might have to adopt a new style. But here he is now in his mid-40s, late 40s now. And he's zipping around the ring like, he's 25 years younger. The guy's like a medical marvel. Unbelievable. He is. EJ, he's the greatest luchador of all time. Now he is heavier. So the thing is, that's what happens when you get older, you get heavier. But when he came to WWE, he put on so much muscle. I mean, it was so obvious. Someone of his size should not have been carrying around the muscle mass that he started carrying around. I mean, Eddie Guerrero's the same thing. And I don't think he did himself any favors health-wise and heart-wise by carrying so much mass. Him and Benoit, they were so jacked. So much bigger than they really should have been for their frame. Ray also, he was noticeably bigger than he was in the WCW days. So he wasn't necessarily moving around exactly the way he did back then. But to still be doing what he's doing in the ring here in 2022 is nothing short of amazing. Diarlo Renford. Who do you want on your Mets? Vladimir Guerrero Sr., Albert Pujols, Larry Walker, or Edgar Martinez during their prime? Oh, I don't know. Probably Vlad. Diarlo says, what do you think of the Montreal Expos, your NL East competition back in the day, trading away Hall of Famers and not re-signing them? I don't pay much attention, frankly, to what those guys are doing. I'm trying to just focus on the Mets and hopefully getting them to the World Series. This is going to be our year. Angry Magma, thank you for another fun review. I left a like too. Well, I appreciate that. Yes, thank you. Leave that thumbs up. Helps get the videos on that recommended sidebar. The more likes we get, the more times it appears on the sidebar. Oh, I have to thank everybody, by the way, because we broke 69,000. How could I forget? I forgot to mention this, that we broke officially 69,000 subs. Let's get the confetti. There it is. This is a 69K party here on the stream tonight. We officially broke the other day 69,000 subs here on the channel. Thank you. Thank you for making that possible. Hunter Peckham. What are the odds that Lesnar actually beats Reigns at SummerSlam and then drops it to Gunther at Clash at the Castle? I think you need to keep dreaming. Lesnar and Walter would be a match I'd like to see. I don't think it would end well for Walter. So for that reason alone, I would not be doing that match anytime soon because I do not want to see Walter lose yet. And if Walter gets in the ring with Brock Lesnar, Walter is not winning that match. Anti-M Bishop. A Solomonster. Thanks for the review. I'm glad I watched baseball tonight. Ordered Impact Slammiversary and GCW this weekend. Cannot wait for them and the podcast on Sunday. All the best. Don't forget, we have Triple Mania as well. I don't think I'll be watching it, but Triple Mania was supposed to have the Hardy Boys in the main event, and now it's going to be Matt Hardy and a mystery partner taking on Dragon Lee and Dralistico, I believe, who are also going to be making their House of Glory debut next Saturday. I'll be calling my first Dragon Lee and Dralistico tag team match. Going to be taking on Main Event. Donald Ghostin, $1.99. Was it me or did Roman Reigns look out of shape? He looked a little soft. He looked a little soft. A little soft. Still in great shape. But yeah, I noticed that a little bit tonight. But you know, he's been hanging out on the island of relevancy, so he probably hasn't been working out. You know, he's been on his hammock on the beach, taking in some rays. Diarlo, don't roast me or cuss me out on this question, but are you a miserable Jets fan or a Giants fan? Aquaman DC hero, that's Roman, versus Goro, that's Brock, from Mortal Kombat Part 20. I didn't even know there was a Part 20. I know there was a Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3. There was a Mortal Kombat Ultimate, and that is the last Mortal Kombat game I ever played. I am not a miserable Jets fan. I am not a miserable Giants fan. I'm not really a huge football guy, but I guess if I had to pick one of the two, it would be the Jets. But I'm not a huge football guy. Robbie Hyde, I don't see how Roman against Brock again is a good idea. I would imagine it has to be a Hell in a Cell at SummerSlam at this. Hell in a Cell? We just had a Hell in a Cell. Hey, Isaac Jones, thank you for the sub. You are now part of the 69,000 that have subscribed to this channel. Thank you, Isaac. We just had a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. We don't need Hell in a Cell. Joseph Brooks, who's a better athlete, Will Ospreay or Ricochet? Both great athletes. John Falchetta says, rest in peace to Dave Hebner. Yes, I saw that news earlier. Earl Hebner's brother, his older brother, Dave, who was in poor health for some time, passed away earlier this afternoon. A longtime WWF referee and then backstage official, agent. I'll have more to say about Dave Hebner on the podcast on Sunday. And you know I'll be talking about the most famous angle of all that Dave was a part of. One of my earliest wrestling memories back when I was a kid. And still to this day, I think one of the greatest angles that WWE ever did was the twin referee angle on NBC with Hogan and Andre. Near says the 4th season of Stranger Things. Wow. Yeah, I just finished it last week. And I won't spoil anything, but the last so it was basically the first half of season 4. So second half of season 4 drops on July 1st, so we won't have to wait that long. But in the finale of part 1, that was quite the revelation during that episode. So it was a pretty crazy season. EJ Slamp, maybe we will finally find out what was in the briefcase in Allentown. If they are going to investigate Vince, they might as well try to find out. We're never going to find out what was in the briefcase, unfortunately. That was always going to be the question I would ask Vince if you could shoot him up with truth serum and sit him in a chair. And I had like 3 questions to ask him. The first question would be, what was in the briefcase? What was in the briefcase during the whole Jimmy Snuka fiasco and you helped get him off? What was in the briefcase when you walked into that police station and you went behind closed doors? What was in the briefcase? What was going on there? Maybe the question isn't so much what was in the briefcase. Maybe the question is what was in the lockbox. Remember the lockbox with Vince and Shane from many years ago? Darth Panic. Where does Linda McMahon fit into this mess? Nowhere. Linda has not been part of the company in over a decade. When she got into politics, she excused herself from the company. I'm not even sure that she's with Vince anymore. They might be married on paper, but I'm not even sure they're living together anymore. Linda is off doing crazy Linda things. Luis, Belmont Show, $10 super chat. So we're going to be spoon-fed this hot, flaming, steaming pile of dog feces again. But tell us how you really feel. I don't think Luis is being all that clear in how he really feels here. He's not happy about Brock Lesnar against Roman Reigns. He says, freeze me and defrost me when this is over. Well, I would happily freeze you, and I don't know if I would defrost you, though, but I would freeze you if I knew how to do that. Food Hive says, I buried the lead there. Yes, I forgot to mention 69K. I was so wrapped up in Vince at the beginning of the stream, I forgot that we had broken 69,000. And finally, the Carloses. Ding dong, Vince is gone. Do you think WWE would be a better place if Vince had stepped aside, including and especially creative control 5 years ago? Creative control, absolutely. Look, I gave Vince his props earlier. From a business point of view, he has brought this company from all the way down here to all the way up here. And it's a multi-billion-dollar company now, and that happened under his watch. So you got to give him credit for that. Creatively, this company would be I would think that this company would be in better shape if he was out of the creative position a number of years ago. That's without knowing who might take over. Sometimes they say, be careful what you wish for, you might get it. We can get someone worse. But I do think that what is needed more than anything else, and I will keep saying this, what is needed more than anything else is a change at the top, creatively, in this company. This man is 76 years old. He is 76 years old. And I just think that at some point, you want to have some fresh, new, younger blood in there, leading the creative direction of your company. It has been, in a lot of ways, a creative catastrophe that have led them to this point where they are in this situation when you have a couple of names that go down with injuries, like Cody Rhodes went down, Randy Orton has apparently gone down. And you keep running back the same matches and the same people over and over and over again. This is what you end up with. They don't have Triple H anymore to lean on. They don't have The Undertaker anymore to lean on. A lot of those guys are gone, and they're not coming back. The Undertakers and the Kanes and the Triple H's of the world, Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho. Vince does not have them anymore. So what do? We go to Brock. The Roman experiment, that's been going on now for 7 or 8 years. It took them most of those 7 years to get it right. And now, I'm sorry to say it, we have gotten to the point where, I used to talk about how the reign of terror, Triple H's reign of terror back in 2002, and how awful that period was, and how boring the television was on Mondays. SmackDown was easily the A show. We've reached a point now where this is worse. This is every bit as bad, if not worse, than the reign of terror. I never thought I would see the day, but here we are. Xeno Slayer just dropped a $5 super chat, wants to know what is the dumbest gimmick matches that I have ever seen in WCW and WWF. Oh, I think that Kennel from Hell match is pretty high up there on that list. I mean, if you think about it, in theory, it's not a terrible idea. If you have a lot of rabid dogs in between the cage and the cell, down below, it's like a dangerous pit of dogs. The concept is not awful, but in execution, that's one of the worst matches I've ever seen. I don't know, there have been some pretty bad stipulations over the years. I think Jerry Lawler's favorite match, they did a match on Raw once. It was like a battle royal. And this was clearly a very different era in WWE. I remember it was the over the top, off with your top match. Anybody remember that? Over the top, off with your top. Jerry Lawler was very excited, of course, with the ladies. Jerry Lawler was very excited that night about that match. we've got Luis with another super chat. I forgot to add the word forcefully to my statement. Well, I'm glad you clarified that. I didn't know that it was forceful to begin with. Although, talking about how you were going to freeze yourself and then be unfrozen at the end of all this, I kind of got the message that you were going for. Diarlo says, is this a hot take, but do you think Ken Shamrock was a good one-time Intercontinental Champion? Yeah, that was not a hot take. He was. Ken Shamrock was very good. I thought Ken Shamrock was very good. I don't think he gets the credit that he deserves. I don't think that's a hot take at all. Food Hive. Do you still love Dark more than Stranger Things? Also, the scene with Max on Stranger Things is one of the greatest scenes in TV history. I very much enjoyed the show Dark. I still have not seen the final season. I am wrapping up another show right now. I'm wrapping up Money Heist. So when I'm done with that, I will go back. I'm going to rewatch Dark from the very beginning because I will say, as much as I enjoy the show Dark on Netflix, it is the most confusing television show that I've ever seen in my entire life. Just trying to follow the family tree and the relationships and who is who is impossible to follow. So, because there's time travel involved. I don't want to get into what the show is and everything, but it's a foreign language show. I think it's a German show. I watch it with subtitles, but I love it. It's got that creepy vibe, but there's like a portal. There's like time travel involved, and the younger version of this person and the older version of this person, and this. I was so confused. I literally had a printout. Somebody online put together an actual like family tree, and I printed it out so I would have it in front of me, and I'm staring at it, and I was still confused. So I have to start the show all over again. There's only 3 seasons. I will start it from the beginning. I will watch it from season 1, and then eventually I will get to season 3. Because I never got to see season 3 came out a few years ago. I never got around to see it. But you guys know how long it took for me to finally watch Joker, so you guys know it takes me a while sometimes to catch up on my TV viewing. Andre Israel, thank you for the 5. Buy or sell on these 2 matches that we have never seen before. Thunder Rosa against Sasha Banks or Chris Statlander against Rhea Ripley. Give me Thunder Rosa against Sasha Banks. I think there's a very good chance we see that match before this year is over. That could be your all-out match for the Women's Championship. Do Not Pass Go. Is Ryan Ward still with WWE? Him and Triple H did a hell of a job with NXT creatively during its golden era. I don't know. I don't know offhand because I at first I was thinking of Ryan Katz. I don't know. I don't know if he's still there. Evan Watson, what did you think of Angle Booker T feud in 2005? Very weird. The only thing I remember is how obsessed Kurt Angle was with Sharmell and how he said he wanted to have hot bestiality sex with Booker's wife. And I just tuned everything else out, and I was completely freaked out, and that's the only thing I remember about that feud. So, you don't forget something like that. Bobby's World. Do you think that when either Brock or Roman are told they have to wrestle each other again, they have the same reaction that we do? This crap again. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Not a doubt in my mind. In their head, they're thinking the same exact thing. They're thinking, this again? But they get paid all the same. Brock knows he's going to get paid. He just shows up and does, okay, they want me to face this guy? All right. He might, there might be like 1 or 2 people on the roster he doesn't want to work with. He told Riddle once, you and I will never work together. He's not a fan of Matt Riddle, but Brock just shows up, he gets paid all the same, and whatever, he does what he's told. Rizzo with the $10. Speaking of the speaking out movement, I'm stunned that Jerry Lawler never got any of the heat that some others got. I have to be up at 6 a.m., but as always, this chat and you were worth staying up for. Well, that's very nice of you, Rizzo. Thank you very much. Lawler is another one. Lawler has been Teflon for years. Lawler's gotten in trouble at times over the years. like in Memphis. When he calls himself the king of Memphis, he's not lying. I mean, he's gone to court. He's had certain situations that he's been in, and he always finds his way out. He always finds his way out. I could tell you stories, man. I think I've already told them on the podcast. There was that one story. There were accusations made against him many, many years ago, back in '93. Actually, that's why he had to step away from WWF for a while. You got to find the information on that and go back and read that and read the letter that Lawler wrote to the court. Again, I don't want to get into all the specifics, but it's something else. It is something else. We got Diarlo again, $10 super chat. Mountain of Omnipotence stable. Finn Balor is not the leader. Damian Priest. This Go Dark Carnival 2.0 WCW levels. Yeah, you know who the leader of the group is? Rhea Ripley. The way that she was positioned in that segment on Monday night on screen, Rhea Ripley to me is the leader of that group. And Diarlo says, what did you think about the ultimate submission match of Backlash 2001, Benoit versus Angle, and do you think they need to bring back that match type? No, I don't think they need to bring it back. I wouldn't mind it if they did. You'd have to have the right two people in it. I think, frankly, that might be a better match for AEW to do with some of the talent they have. I remember that being a very good match. I think that was better than their WrestleMania match. And I believe, hopefully I didn't miss anybody, but I believe that we are caught up. Some good questions. Some good questions, and we got another one coming in here. From Evan Watson. I don't think Money in the Bank should only be a heel move. The person has to win a ladder match to earn it. A smart babyface can pick his spot to cash in. Look, smart babyface could cash in on a heel, but I just think if you, like everybody was saying before he got hurt, that Cody Rhodes should win Money in the Bank, and I just thought that would be stupid. I don't like that idea. I don't think he needed to win Money in the Bank. Cody could have just kept winning, and eventually he would have earned himself a championship match. Maybe he would have won the Royal Rumble. He might still win the Royal Rumble. And that's how he earns his way into a championship match. But the idea that Cody would win Money in the Bank and then people were talking about how, he could cash in on Roman Reigns, like after a match, I go, no, that completely goes against the Cody Rhodes character. He would not do that. It doesn't fit. So most baby faces, I think, it's better for them to call their shot and say, look, I don't need to beat you from behind. Get the cheap win. We have a pay-per-view coming up. I'm calling you out right now. I'm cashing in my Money in the Bank in the main event of SummerSlam, or I'm cashing in whatever, Royal Rumble, whatever the event would be. That's how I think it should be with, a babyface winner. There are exceptions to that, but, when everybody was talking about Cody and Money in the Bank, I just thought, he doesn't need it. He doesn't need it. And if he does get it, then he's got to call his shot like RVD did all those years ago. And I think John Cena did the same thing. You don't sneak up on somebody and beat them because we've seen that so many times before, and it's such a cheap way of winning. Darth Panic, $5 super chat. Wouldn't you like to pick Jerry McDevitt's brain? All the scandals he has dealt with over the years. Buy or sell Sasha and Kiera Hogan in a tag team. No, I don't want to see Sasha Banks in a tag team. No more tag teams. We've seen Sasha Banks with Bayley. We've seen Sasha Banks with Naomi. I am done with the Sasha Banks tag teams. I want to see Sasha Banks one-on-one against new opponents, fresh faces. Sasha is one of the very best women's wrestlers in any company right now. And we just have not had the chance to see her go out there and work with all these newer people, whether it's Rhea Ripley or she worked with Bianca, so that was, and they had a great match at WrestleMania. But I don't want any more Sasha Banks tag teams. If she goes to AEW, I am sure she will end up doing some tag team matches. Everybody does. But I do not want to see her in some sort of permanent tag team like what we had in WWE. I want to see her in singles matches. I do not want to see her back at a tag team again. To me, that's right back where she was. That's right back where she was. Why even leave WWE if you're going to be right back in that same position? It doesn't make any sense to me. Bryant Finley. Have you ever heard the urban legend with Jimmy Valiant, a glass table and a hooker with a bodily function? Yes, I have. And I am not going to tell that story. But I have heard that. Dr. Wolfman. Best use of babyface Money in the Bank would be giving it away. That's what I call dumb babyface syndrome. That is not the best use of the Money in the Bank briefcase. The Money in the Bank briefcase is not meant to be charity. That's not what Money in the Bank is supposed to be. That would be like John Cena winning Money in the Bank and then giving it to one of the many Make-A-Wish kids that he meets. It would be a nice gesture, but that would be pretty stupid. And you know the thing about John Cena? I could see him doing something like that. Visiting a sick kid in a hospital and saying, I have a gift for you. Here's the actual Money in the Bank briefcase. There's a contract inside. And, you know, when you're feeling better, you can cash in and win the championship. John Cena is a quality human being. I could see him doing something like that. Huge Ass. One of my favorite names. Is Tony Khan in over his head with all of his ventures? AEW has not been at its best recently, and that interview he did post Double or Nothing was troubling and bizarre. Yeah, the way he went off in that interview, it was kind of embarrassing. I mean, on the one hand, it's cool that he's sticking up for his champion, but on the other hand, he just launched into this profanity-laced tirade for nothing. I mean, look, I like myself a good profanity-laced tirade as much as the next person, but it just came out of nowhere, you know? And I'm just thinking, my God, Owen Hart's widow is there that night. If she's like standing off to the side, maybe, like, what must she be thinking? Like, I'm like, this is not the time to be, you know, going off on Eric Bischoff over some nonsense. Eric Bischoff is not worth going off on in that way. I like CM Punk's advice. I liked his response to that whole thing when he said, you let people like that die in the dark. Just ignore them and move on with your life. Hairu. I think it's inevitable that Sasha ends up in AEW, but I would like to see her make a pit stop in Japan with Stardom. Kairi against Sasha would be fire. Yeah, that would be great. I think a pit stop would be fine, but she is not going to Stardom or anything like that permanently. I don't see that happening. But look, you know, once she's free, if she isn't already, she can pretty much do what she wants. If she wants to go to Japan and work a couple of matches there, you know, she went over to Japan when she took that little sabbatical a while back in WWE. She left and flew herself to Japan to go train with Meiko Satomura because it was something that she always wanted to do, was to go over there. So I could absolutely see Sasha Banks wanting to do that, but ultimately she's going to land someplace, you know, with television, and that place is going to be AEW because Tony Khan would be crazy not to snatch her up. Dr. Wolfman, I meant if they held the belt already. I see. And Bryant Finley, do you think there's any truth to that story? I have no idea what story you're referring to. Let me go back and see what he mentioned in his previous, again with the Jimmy Valiant story. I do believe it's a true story. You got to understand something. There are some sick fucking people in the wrestling business, especially back then. All right, the stories I've heard and read about, it's just, you know, just sick fucking guys. Yes, I believe that there is truth to that story, actually. All right, now I think I'm caught up on your super chats here. We've got close to 600 likes, which is awesome. So again, hit that like button if you have not already done so. I will periodically remind you about that because I sometimes forget myself to remind you about that. Food Hive. What was for dinner? Had some chicken and shrimp with cashew nuts and some brown rice. 89 Tech, $14 super chat. Overall, do you think Brock did more harm than good to the roster in terms of taking them seriously? Financially, he helped a lot, I'm sure, but how can we take the stars seriously when they keep getting dominated by Brock? I think with Brock comes good and bad. I think that Brock, even now, Brock still has an aura about him that nobody else really does, because we don't get to see him too often. He does still feel special. But, you know, he ran through so many people, and I still maintain Samoa Joe should have won. Samoa Joe should have beaten him when they had their match at Great Balls of Fire. I still stand by that. You know, there was even a period of time around that time when Braun Strowman was super hot with the fans, as hot as he had ever been. And you could argue that that was his moment. And when he lost, much as everybody else did, to the 1F5, he was never the same after that. I still maintain Joe should have had at least a short run with the title. So he definitely, boy, you know, we talk about Roman Reigns mowing him down. Brock mowed a lot of people down. And he was unbeatable. And it just got to the point where nobody was left who could believably beat this guy. And that's a problem when you haven't built up anybody who can, you know, stand across the ring from this guy and the fans can look at it and go, okay, this is it, right? This is the guy. They didn't have anybody like that. Vince wanted it to be Roman Reigns. The fans rebelled against it. And so Brock ended up beating everybody else, and there was really nobody left. So, yes, he absolutely did harm. But it wasn't even that Brock did harm. It was Vince. Vince is the one who booked all this shit. So, yes, there was harm done, absolutely. Groovy Goose, I see a New York World Series. How about you? I think you are on the money. I think it's looking very likely. Could be a Subway Series this year. I'm sure that everybody else across the country could care less about there being a Subway Series. But right now, both teams are doing very well. Do Not Pass Go says he had plain chicken fingers, or chicken tenders, and roasted pretzels. No wonder why I have a headache. Well, I would take your headache over the jaw pain that I've been having. I don't know, the last couple of days, my jaw on this side, like it's not swollen or anything, but oh my God, it hurts. Whenever I eat and I bite down, it's the worst pain. So I'm hoping whatever this is, it passes. At least it hasn't affected my speech. That would be a problem. If I couldn't speak, you know, this is how I make a living here. That would be problematic. I don't think anybody would really like it as much if it was Solomonster signs off. I had to do sign language. I don't think that would work out too well. 89 Tech, what are your top 3 catchphrases? A friend in need is a pest. It comes from Bobby Heenan. I don't know. That would be my number 1. If you're talking wrestling just purely wrestling catchphrases. Purely wrestling catchphrases, I would say, I mean, look, take your pick from Austin and Rock. Those two alone, right, have some of the most popular catchphrases. Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's certainly not, I'll throw a fireball in your face because I'm a wizard. That would not be in my top 3. Brian, $5.99. Apparently, Tony Khan he started that sleaze thread that had the 460 items on the Death Valley driver boards. He brought it up in an Observer interview. Yeah, you know, he used to be on the message boards, and he was probably, you know, perusing. He was a lurker on RSPW probably back in the day. So Tony Khan he's a wrestling geek. He probably still under like a burner account goes around to certain message boards and Twitter threads. He could be in the chat right now. In fact, Food Hive, I've never met Food Hive in person. Who's to say that Food Hive isn't Tony Khan pretending to be a chef? Hiru, I know you said that his career is dead, but do you think Dijakovic with LA Knight could salvage him and make him somewhat credible? I mean, he's not handsome enough to be in the maximum male models. Donovan Dijak is not a male model. No. Food Hive, quarantine, no haircut, Solomonster was the best. Yeah, I didn't really like the guy. He looked like he had a mop on his head. It was ridiculous. That's what 16 weeks with no haircut will do to you. We can leave quarantine no haircut Solomonster, I think, in the past where he belongs. Hunter says, best catchphrase is Michael Cole's, it's boss time. Hey, at least we won't have to hear that anymore, right? No more boss time. You think Excalibur on commentary will go, it's boss time? Then again, he'd probably say it so fast I wouldn't be able to hear what he's saying. Man bun Solomonster. I don't think there's enough hair for a man bun. Maybe a bowl cut. What about that? Bowl cut Solomonster? 89 Tech. Does the United States throw driving offenders to jail if they drive without a license? Talking about Jeff here, it was a selfish decision. He could have killed somebody. The answer is no, they don't. And there really are no laws against it. The whole system is fucked. When it comes to this kind of stuff and the laws that are on the books and everything, the whole system is fucked. So these things continuously happen. People get away with it. They do it again, and eventually somebody dies as a result. Unfortunately, it sometimes takes that to have real changes made, but that still hasn't happened yet. 89 Text says Michael Cole's "Oh my." That's his favorite catchphrase for everything. Oh my. Food Hive. Hey Jay, thank you for the sub. Food Hive says, I'm Tony Khan. Why else was I saying 9 days for so long? Well, there you go. You know, all those cocaine memes then. I guess it wasn't cocaine. It was flour, right? Because he's a chef, right? He was baking. Now it all makes sense. All right, I didn't realize we were 2.5 hours. I was having so much fun with you guys. We're 2.5 hours in. It's time to be the booker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to be the booker.
Can't end this stream until we be the booker. Now, can we? Look at Diarlo dropping a $20 super chat. Says, this is why I love pro wrestling, because you get some crazy news every day from every promotion. This week was nuts. And Max Scherzer, do you think his contract is a bust? No, I wouldn't say that. Hopefully he'll be back soon and can stay healthy. I wouldn't say that. We begin with the Celtic Warrior. It's fight night, everybody. It's Sheamus. You know, Sheamus did some interview where he said that he wants to win Money in the Bank so that he could cash in for a shot at the Intercontinental title, because Sheamus is obsessed with winning the Intercontinental title. It's like the only title that he hasn't won. He hasn't won the Universal title either, but the Intercontinental is like the only original title since, he started in the company that he hasn't won. And just think about that. If he wins Money in the... He's not going to. But if he wins Money in the Bank and cashes in for the IC title, that means we get Sheamus and Walter. Now, that would be a fucking match. Maybe Walter will come up here and be the booker. Let's see. I'm almost positive that he's in here. I can't imagine I didn't put him in here. Let's see. It's going to be Sheamus going one-on-one with Sabu. People are going to get fucked up in that match. That's my prediction for the Sheamus and Sabu match. People are going to bleed. People are going to get hurt. Sabu's going to put himself through some tables. Sheamus is going to have welts all over his body and probably some gashes. I think that would have been a fun match. Hard-hitting, fun, stiff match between Sheamus and Sabu. So I give that the bell. I don't give that the buzzer. I like that match. Sheamus and Sabu is an interesting one. You want a physical match? I think that would be a very physical match. On the ladies' side, we begin with Cyndi Lauper, who should be in the WWE Hall of Fame and is not. I don't know how good of a wrestler she is. If it wasn't for her and Mr. T, we might not be sitting here together tonight talking about pro wrestling. That's how important she is in WWE history. Cyndi Lauper, for those who don't know, is a singer who was a huge celebrity back in the mid-'80s when WWF brought her in during the rock and wrestling era. Cyndi Lauper against everyone's favorite, the Queen, Charlotte Flair. Honestly, anybody against Cyndi Lauper was going to get the buzzer. All the Charlotte Flair fans are going to be pissed at me now. But anybody against Cyndi Lauper would have been a thumbs down from me. Let's try out the tag teams. A lot of good tag teams here in Be the Booker. We've booked a few interesting ones recently. We begin with, oh boy. This is a great idea from Vince McMahon, wasn't it? The Mexicools. Let's take 3 Mexican guys and we'll have them ride a lawnmower to the ring. Yeah. That sounds like a great idea. The Mexicools. Who will be stepping into the ring with the Mexicools? We have... Oh, it's Mulder and Scully! From the X-Files. Mulder and Scully against the Mexicools. Yeah. I don't think so. There's a match I bet you never thought you'd hear about. Maybe Mulder and Scully would investigate where the Mexicools came from. Maybe they're not from this planet. I told you never know what kind of duo, you never know what kind of tag team you're going to get. Here and Be the Booker. You never know. You never know. You never know what you're going to get when you come to the Be the Booker segment here on these streams. We got Food Hive. His favorite catchphrase is, "That don't work for me, brother." You know what? I agree. And I actually use that in real life a lot. So that would be on my list as well. That don't work for me, brother. And he also says, did Sheamus have a My Rise start to his career? Not sure exactly what you mean by that, but I don't believe so. Juan in the chat, your comments actually, I think, constitute the buzz with the laughter. I always forget to hit the button. But in celebration of the comment that you just left me, that's for you, Juan. King Bling Blah. What's going on, King Bling Blah? Rene Dupri as Max's older brother or male model? I think Renee Dupri is too old for that now. You know, these models, they've got to be on the younger side. Renee's got to be, pushing 30 by now, right? So that's too old. That's too old. Look at King Bling Blah in the chat. That's adorable. He thought I missed his super chat. He thought that Solomonster was going to neglect his super chat. He didn't have enough faith in me. I thought you knew me better than that. Food Hive says, Mexicool's crime time, good old WWE racism. And Dr. Scorpio says, a new low in Be the Booker history. Which one? You talking about the women or you talking about the tag teams? Because you could go either way. Diarlo says, last baseball super chat, but what do you think about Tony Gwynn and Cal Ripken Jr.? Two great baseball players. You know, I wasn't really a huge fan of theirs at the time. They were New York guys, but great respect for their careers. You know, Cal Ripken was the Iron Man for a while there. You got to respect that. Food Hive, I mean a video game storyline start to his career. No, I don't. I mean, Sheamus is not the only one who made it to the main roster and was pushed hard, you know, and I know he became champion pretty early in his career, but I guess you could look at it kind of like a My Rise career. It's a better career than I'm having in My Rise. I could tell you that. That's a good segue, by the way, to me plugging the latest Sound Off Gamer. My Royal Rumble disgrace. An absolute disgrace. And I am contemplating retirement after this episode. If you missed it, it went up the other day. You gotta check this out. You've got to see the bullshit that I went through in this latest episode. I hope you were at least entertained by it, because I certainly came out of this, my blood pressure was sky high. That is up on the channel right now. The latest Sound Off Gamer. 8-9 Tech, best wrestlers of the decade from 80 to 20. Oh, I don't know. Take your pick from the 80s. Go with Flair, you can go with Savage. Hogan, if you're just talking strictly business, you got to go with Hogan. What are we talking about when you say wrestler of the decade? You're talking business, you're talking popularity, you're talking, 5-star matches. What are you talking about? Because in the 90s, you can go Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. Or if you're talking business, you can go Steve Austin and The Rock. You see? It all depends. It's so very subjective that there's no right or wrong answer to that question. And Winter's Paw. Tonight's further proof that Twitter hardcore fans don't reflect real life people. Just look at Dynamite ratings with indie darling Ospreay. Yeah, because I'm sure Dynamite drew that rating because Will Ospreay had a match in the middle of the show. I'm sure that had a lot to do with that. Right. Oh, you should see some of the comments I see on social media this whole week. What a shit show. What an absolute shit show. It is ridiculous. Food Hive. So what is the objective for the next Sound Off Gamer? I'm not sure there is an objective. Somebody told me I should try Universe Mode. That way there's no objectives. But then there's probably no storylines in Universe Mode, right? I haven't tried Universe Mode, so I'm not sure. Maybe we do Universe Mode. Yeah, there's got to be storylines like there are in My Rise, though. Otherwise, I think people are going to lose interest. Boots. I'm 45 minutes behind. AEW has interim champions, while WWE has an interim CEO. The word of the month is interim. Would I work in WWE as a PR guy? No, I don't want the job. Food Hive. So what is the objective for the next? I just read that. Did he send that twice, or is that the one? I think I just read that one. No, he sent it twice. He sent it twice. EJ Slamp, do you think if Savage were still alive today that he would have done something in AEW? Whether it was a one-off appearance or something full-time? No. He'd be too old by now. He'd be too old. And look, he didn't want to really be in the spotlight anymore. He disappeared for a while off the face of the earth because he really didn't want to be seen. So, no, I don't think he would have done... I mean, maybe Tony Khan would have, because Tony Khan was probably a huge fan of his. I could see Tony trying to reach out to him and saying, hey, want you to come in and wave to the crowd or something. But he was so broken down even then. And by now, he would be mid to late 60s. I don't think he would have had anything to do with AEW. I think he would have just wanted to be left alone. All right, guys. This has been fun. You guys really, on Wednesday and again tonight, man, you guys fucking killed it. You guys killed it. This is probably the biggest Friday stream. Friday tends to be kind of a dead night. We didn't even cover Rampage tonight. I'll talk about that after I watch it. But despite all of the craziness and all of the insanity and all of the news, and there's just so much of it, it's hard to keep track of everything. I do my best to do it for you, and hopefully you guys will tune into the podcast on Sunday. That's going to be episode 761. As you can imagine, we have a lot to discuss. We have a lot to cover on the podcast this Sunday. You know what the top story is already. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Jeff Hardy. If there's any other news on Sasha Banks, we'll talk about her. We'll talk about what we saw tonight and how things are looking for Money in the Bank and SummerSlam and a whole bunch of AEW news and notes as well. So it'll be a good time. So that'll be coming up on Sunday. Beowulf says that he turns 39 on Wednesday. So happy early birthday to Beowulf. Quick reminder, I will not be live next Wednesday because I will be out of town. So I will be back late that night, too late to stream, but next Thursday, we'll go live and we'll do the AEW review that night. That's the final Dynamite before Forbidden Door. So we'll just do it 24 hours later. Hopefully you guys will carve out some time on your Thursday night for the old Solomonster. And back here again next Friday for the usual Friday stream. So be well, stay safe. I'm going to be working all weekend in preparation for Sunday. And I will see you for episode 761 of the podcast on Sunday, Father's Day. Till then, take care, guys. Hey, Food Hive, I just saw your last super chat. I almost missed it. I almost missed Food Hive's super chat. Can we see the comments you get video like RSPW? Was it like a mean comments type video? Maybe. I don't know. I want to share this hate mail and give these people all the attention, but you do remind me that RSPW, we got to get a new episode out soon. So I will work on that. All right, now I'm gone for real. Go to bed. See you guys on Sunday.